It was from the Cataclysm. I can illuminate the technological tree. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 451 Climate Control Satellite demonstrates power. Different from the cheers in the 6 surface cities, the headquarters of the People's Academy of Sciences was filled with a tense atmosphere at this time point. Every scientific researcher pays close attention to the holographic interface in front of them, for fear of missing any data point. The reason is simple. Point after the explosion of a super large nuclear bomb, Nero produced extremely large fragments. Smaller pieces do not require too much attention. Point as they fall, they melt naturally. Point what needs attention are the larger fragments, although after rigorous calculations, the Academy of Sciences has chosen the relatively safest blasting method. Point however, the first explosion still produced thousands of medium and large comet fragments that were enough to threaten the surface of Dawnstar. Among them are 5 extremely large fragments with a diameter of more than 50 kilometers. Moreover, under the impact of the hydrogen bomb, the landing trajectory of these fragments changed greatly. Therefore, for the Noah's Ark project, the real test has just begun. 0. Report the blasting results immediately. Yongchang gave the order. Seriously, the blasting was successfully completed. Zero's tone was very calm. A total of 1,372 medium and large fragments were produced, which is consistent with the calculation results. The location of medium and large debris has been locked, accompanied by Zero's electronically synthesized sound. Large or small bright green boxes quickly appeared in the huge holographic screen in front of him. Point in the bright green box are pieces of comet fragments of various sizes. Yongchang glanced at the data in the holographic projection and said in a deep voice, "A network of circumplanetary climate control satellites operating at full power. Go ahead as planned. Receive." There is hardly any lag. Point the circumplanetary climate control satellite network located in the upper orbit of Dawnstar started to move at this moment. The first to be dispatched was the small space-based electromagnetic gun. Point electromagnetic gun pellets carrying micro-hydrogen bombs quickly rushed towards 1372 targets. After a few seconds of waiting time. Point as the electromagnetic gun projectile successfully hit the target, dense fireworks rose in the upper atmosphere of Dawnstar under the bombardment of micro-hydrogen bombs and electromagnetic gun pellets. Large fragments that may have affected the ground were fragmented again. Point the moment the explosion ended, a high-energy laser beam appeared. Point at such a close distance, the laser beam hit those diehards with almost no delay. Point the combination of electromagnetic gun and high-energy laser beam produces extremely remarkable effects under the gaze of everyone in the Academy of Sciences. The number of bright green boxes in the giant holographic projection decreased rapidly. Point this means that the number of comet fragments that threaten the surface of Dawnstar is declining sharply, but all this is just the beginning. Point so far, Nero fragments are mostly concentrated in the same area. Point once they turn to liquid and fall to the ground, there is a high probability that a real apocalyptic flood will occur in the corresponding area. Point to use an analogy. Point if all water resources on the earth were extracted, including air, oceans, glaciers, underground, then combine it into a water ball. Point then the diameter of this water polo is almost 1384 kilometers. If only freshwater resources are considered. Point then the diameter of this water polo will be only 400 kilometers. This ratio is small compared to Earth. Point it seems incredible. After all, 71% of the Earth's surface is covered by water. This situation occurs because the Earth's surface is relatively smooth. Point even ocean trenches that are tens of thousands of meters high or mountains that are more than 8,000 meters high are just a layer of texture on the surface of the entire Earth. Point it is precisely because of this that such a small amount of water resources can cover 70% of the Earth's area. Point return to Dawnstar. Nero has a diameter of 600 kilometers, 90% of which is solid ice. Point in other words, once these solid ices are completely liquefied, a water sphere with a diameter of about 560 kilometers will be formed. Such a volume of water resources is concentrated in one area. I am afraid that the Great Flood in the Bible could not reach such a scale. Naturally, the Academy of Sciences will not allow such a disaster to happen. Thus, the real purpose of circumplanetary climate control satellites emerged point liquid nitrogen, high energy laser beam, ultra long distance microwave heating. With all devices running at full power, the atmosphere of Dawnstar quickly changed. The wind picked up. The A1 plane, which had been silent for a long time, once again ushered in the long lost strong wind. Spurred on by circumplanetary climate control satellites, the storm spread rapidly. In just 10 minutes, a gentle wind with a wind speed of 20 km/h appeared on the surface of Dawnstar. The falling speed of debris from Nero is greatly reduced by gentle winds. Wind speed continues to rise. Gentle breeze, fresh breeze, strong wind. In just 1 hour, a global storm once again broke out across the Dawnstar. Under the influence of the storm, these ice crystal fragments were quickly swept across the Dawnstar, whether melted or not. Tick tock. A splash of water appeared on the lens of a high-definition camera placed on the embankment. It's raining. Hope excitedly turned around and grabbed Hansen's arm beside him and said repeatedly, "The plan was successful. After a while, there will be a real ocean on Dawn." Hansen did not speak, but stared blankly at the holographic screen in front of him. He swallowed hard. "Are you sure it's raining?" Hope was stunned for a moment and subconsciously turned his head to look at the holographic projection in front of him. "Fuck," he sighed subconsciously. "This is just like a shower room." Hansen swallowed again and added in a low voice, "This shower room probably uses a high pressure water gun." Under the influence of the storm, every drop of rain was like a bullet, bombarding the gravel-covered surface of Dawn, smashing out one tiny pit after another. Hope was silent for a moment and squeezed out a sentence with difficulty. "The quality of this camera is really good." Hansen, in this kind of scene, you actually told me that the quality of the camera is good. But the next moment, after seeing the weathered stone that was broken next to the camera, he nodded silently. "Yes, the quality is really good." A few minutes later, Hope's eyes widened suddenly. "Hey, Hansen, did you see that?" "What?" Hansen, who was immersed in the large shower room scene, responded impatiently. Hope's voice was full of fear. "Water. The water in the nearby waters is flooding up." Chapter 452 Sibber Bible. Hope's extremely terrified voice made Hansen stunned. "The water in the water area is flooding. Are you kidding?" Although city number 1 is built on the water, it is hundreds of kilometers away from the nearest water area. In addition, some small hills along the way block the view. How can the camera capture the picture on the other side of the water? With a full heart of doubts, Hansen subconsciously turned his head to look at the small holographic projection in front of Hope. It was a small holographic image from Hope's watch. In terms of image quality and viewing experience, it is naturally not as good as a huge holographic image on the square. In addition to the interference of the storm, the picture of the small holographic image appears very blurry. Even so, Hansen recognized the location in the picture at the first time. "Is this area A3? He frowned and asked in a low voice. Hope nodded quickly. "Yes, this is a camera picture of area A3. Hiss." Hansen, who got the confirmation, took a breath. "How did the A3 area become like this? Isn't that a hilly area over there?" Hansen stared at the screen with his eyes wide open, muttering to himself, "How did this become a lake?" The A3 area of Dawnstar is adjacent to the A1 and A2 planes. It is a hilly terrain, close to the water, and the terrain is relatively low. But now, the scene in the holographic picture is a lake with turbulent waves and many islands. No, perhaps, it should not be called a lake. If the area of water farther away is included, what is in front of them should be the first ocean on Dawnstar. Under the blowing of the unique storm of Dawnstar, waves of huge waves have been raised on the ocean. These huge waves, driven by the strong wind, hit the islands exposed above the water surface fiercely. It can be seen with the naked eye that the area of these islands, which are mostly weathered rocks, is rapidly reduced under the impact of the huge waves. Obviously, Hansen was unable to accept the ultimate accelerated version of the evolution process of the sea and the land in front of him for a while. "Ah, you sure this is the A3 area? You didn't call up the camera in the A4 area? A4, adjacent to area A3, is the area closest to the water, with lower terrain and a standard coastal landform point relatively speaking. Hansen is more willing to believe that this is the camera image of area A4 point facing Hansen's doubts. Hope was silent for a moment, then raised his finger and pointed at several reefs with a metallic luster. Here, do you see it? Hansen nodded, subconsciously point under the constant beating of the waves. The fragile weathered rocks on the surface of the reefs basically disappeared, revealing the metal veins in them. This is the highest peak of the Andrew Mountains. If I remember correctly, there are many copper mines in this area, and a mineral prospector is Andrew from the Hangfen team. Hansen's mouth twitched slightly point after this reminder. He also vaguely recognized the appearance of this reef as for area A4. Hope stretched out his hand to operate on the watch and switched the holographic image. It's the underwater world now. The holographic projection flickered for a while and then projected a quiet and peaceful picture. Point Hansen. The quality of the camera is really good. He sighed weakly. Hope shrugged and cut the holographic screen back to area A3 again. In just a few minutes, the distance between the sea surface and the camera was shortened again. According to the current rainfall, it is estimated that it will not be long before area A3 will be completely submerged. Hope's eyes flashed a little worry. Then, it will be the turn of city number 1. I don't know if the dam can withstand it. Science Academy headquarters, command hall, warning. Yellow flood warning. The water level is expected to rise to the guaranteed water level. As Zero's electronic synthesized sound sounded, dozens of red marked areas appeared in the huge holographic projection in front. Fang Zhu looked at the holographic projection worriedly. Yongchang, the situation is a bit beyond expectations. The water level rises too quickly. Damn. Fang Zhu didn't say anything else. But everyone in the command center knew the consequences of this. Once the water level exceeds the dam, city number 1 will become the first underwater city of mankind. Although city number 1 is well sealed and designed to withstand this not so strong water pressure. But the city ports are all built near the ground. Once it becomes an underwater city, the port will definitely not be opened. At that time, they may have to spend a lot of effort to transfer all the supplies. Lu Yongchang naturally knew this. He frowned and looked at the numbers that kept jumping in the holographic projection. It shouldn't be a big problem. In Zero's simulation calculation, the amount of water brought by Nero is not enough to flood our dam. Just wait. Although he said so, he couldn't help showing a little anxiety on his face. One day later, the rainstorm that swept the entire planet gradually stopped. The melting of the ice comet absorbed a lot of heat, and the surface temperature of Dawn Star also dropped a lot. Looking at the slowly rising average atmospheric temperature curve, Lu Yongchang breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, with the joint efforts of Gliese 555 and the planetary climate control satellite, the surface temperature of Dawn has not dropped below freezing. Of course, the main contributor is Gliese 555. Compared with the light and heat brought by stars, the energy provided by humans is just a drop in the ocean. That is why the climate control satellite can only guide on the existing basis. If Dawn does not have periodic global storms, then even if the power of human climate control satellites is multiplied several times, it is estimated that it will not have much impact on the climate of Dawn. Lv Yongchang glanced at the sensor data in the holographic projection, and a long-lost relaxed smile appeared on his face. It is basically the same as the calculation result. The dam successfully blocked the flood. But the 6 surface cities of mankind are now like 6 isolated islands in the vast ocean. Looking at the picture sent back by the camera, Lv Yongchang shook his head helplessly. Yongchang, what should we do next? Seeing the endless sea around city number 1, Fang Zhu's mouth twitched, and he asked in a low voice, build a new closed city. Lv Yongchang pondered for a moment and shook his head slowly. No, this time, build an open city directly. When the city is built, it is estimated that the environmental transformation of Dawn Star will be basically completed. By then, humans who have awakened from hibernation can live directly on the transformed Dawn Star. Speaking of this, Lv Yongchang's voice paused slightly. He turned his head and looked at the camera next to him. Zero. prepare to send out a group of drones to conduct high-altitude reconnaissance of the surface of Dawnstar. Shooting. Images are synchronized to all holographic terminals, as described in the Bible, in order to detect whether the flood outside has receded. Noah released the Dove Point now, in order to observe the effects of the flood caused by Comet Nero. LV Yongchang ordered the release of a group of drones. New Era Cyber Bible Point JPG Chapter 453 Earth Second. A familiar alarm sounded. Point Hope, who was sleeping soundly, slowly opened his eyes, and the door of the medical cabin opened automatically. Point he coughed twice, and coughed out the liquid left in his lungs while coughing. There was still some panic and confusion in his eyes. The scene of the storm in the square yesterday was vivid. Point even his dream material last night was the surging waves. He climbed out of the medical cabin with great effort, cleaned his body a little, and then turned over, and lay on the big bed beside him. Point then, he closed his eyes again, turned over and shouted, "Mill, turn off the alarm." Mill is his mother's name and the name of his personal family smart housekeeper. The moment the alarm stopped, a holographic projection automatically unfolded at the head of the bed. Point an electronic synthesized voice came from the speaker next to him. "Mr. Hope." Mr. Hansen sent a communication request. Every time he heard this stiff electronic synthesized voice, Hope would feel a little regretful. Point what a pity. Point the Academy of Sciences prohibits the use of real voices as dubbing for personal housekeepers. Reject. Hope yawned and then closed his heavy eyelids. "Tell him I am too sleepy." "Okay, the message has been sent." The room returned to silence again. Point in a daze, Hope felt that he had fallen asleep again. Point this time, he watched the floods over the dam and submerged the entire city. Number 1 into the sea. Point. But what is this banging background sound? Mr. Hope, Hansen is knocking on the door. The stiff electronic synthesized voice sounded again, pulling him out of his dream. Damn. Didn't I tell him I was going to sleep? Hope, who had been disturbed several times in a row, felt a little angry and sat up from the bed. "Me, turn on the camera screen. I want to see what this guy's going to say." It's turned on. Looking at Hansen standing outside the door anxiously in the holographic screen, Hope greeted him unhappily. "Hey." Hearing Hope's voice, Hansen's expression suddenly became excited. "How dare you talk? What time is it? And you're still sleeping? Did you know that the heavy rain outside has stopped?" "Just woken up from his sleep." Hope, who was not fully awake yet, subconsciously retorted, "Heavy rain? What does the stopping of the heavy rain have to do with my sleeping?" His voice became softer and softer, and he seemed to have noticed something wrong. Point Hansen's tone became more intense in the loudspeaker. "What does it have to do with you? Do you know that in 5 minutes, the drone group of the Academy of Sciences will leave city number 1, when the time comes? Don't blame me for not reminding you." Hope shuddered again. Point he was completely awake. Point seeing Hansen ready to turn around and leave in the holographic screen, Hope hurriedly called him. Hope's house, living room. Point Hope, wearing pajamas and exoskeleton armor, scratched his head with a smirk. Point as for Hansen, he rolled his eyes unhappily. Ahem. Hope reached out and turned on the holographic image generator in the living room. "Watch the live broadcast. Watch the live broadcast." Hansen wanted to say something, but was attracted by the picture in the holographic projection. Point the port at the bottom of city number 1 slowly opened. Point. Although the drainage equipment is very powerful, after a rainstorm of this scale, the ground near the port has become muddy. Point the next moment, the camera angle moved up. Point a team of drones lined up in neat formations came out of the port. Point. After circling a few times on the top of city number 1, they dispersed to the surroundings. The images on the holographic projection began to play in turn. Each drone had the opportunity to go on camera only when it found a valuable image. Point first, what appeared in front of Hope and Hansen was the endless blue ocean. Point unlike the small waters before, this time, it was a real ocean. Point Zero's introduction also sounded. After the completion of this planetary transformation plan, the area of the 5 water areas in the equatorial region of Dawnstar has increased significantly. The original water areas merged to form the largest ocean on Dawnstar, the new Pacific Ocean. Unlike the Pacific Ocean in the Earth era, the average depth of the new Pacific Ocean is 500 meters, and the deepest is only more than 3,000 meters. At present, the 6 surface cities are all located on the edge of the new Pacific Ocean. Please Believe in the quality of the city and the dam, citizens of the People's Union. This will not bring any danger. On the contrary, it will bring us a brand new living experience. Hope looked at the picture in the holographic projection with a dull look, and the corners of his mouth twitched slightly. Point, you call this a brand new living experience? If you can talk, say more. Point. Before he had time to complain, the camera switched. Point. This time, it was a picture from the satellite. Point. At this time, Dawnstar has become a planet with alternating blue and yellow-brown colors. The aftermath of the global storm has not yet dissipated, and there are still a lot of white clouds floating on the surface of the planet. Point. This scene made Hope and Hansen completely stunned. Point. Not only him, but all the people from Earth in the 6 surface cities were stunned in front of the holographic projection. Point. Zero's electronic synthesized voice was as bland as ever. In order to restore the line forms of the Earth era as much as possible, the Academy of Sciences has carried out precise transformation of the surface of Dawn in the past 6 months. Unfortunately, due to technical and time factors, the transformation project is not perfect. In many details, Dawn is still very different from the Earth. The picture in front of Hope gradually blurred. Point. A line of hot tears slid down his cheeks uncontrollably. Point. That is the appearance of the Earth. Even though he was young when he left the Earth, even though he had not seen the appearance of the Earth for hundreds of years, but he still recognized the planet in front of him at a glance. Hope. This is the Earth. Beside him, Hansen's voice was trembling. Point. Hope choked up and couldn't speak for a while and could only nod repeatedly. Point. Indeed, this is simply the plus version of the Earth, although the terrain in some areas is still very different from the Earth. Although the surface is bare without any vegetation, but the general shape of the coastline and continental plates has already taken shape of the Earth. Hope looked at the holographic projection in front of him with tears in his eyes, muttering to himself, "It's worth it. Hundreds of years of fleeing. At this moment, it was worth it." Chapter 454. The Light of Hope. The image in the holographic projection switched again. Point. Hope hurriedly reached out to wipe away the tears of excitement from the corners of his eyes and stared at the image in front of him with his eyes wide open as much as possible. Point. I don't know when the satellite image in the picture has disappeared and it was replaced by the real life shooting picture sent back by the drone. Point. The global superstorm unique to the surface of Dawnstar and the extremely high intensity rainfall in a short period of time. Point. The combination of the two is an unparalleled power of terrain transformation. Point. The power of nature, wind erosion and water erosion are vividly demonstrated at this moment. Is this the A1 plane? Hansen's puzzled voice came from the side. Point. Hope frowned and carefully examined the scene in the holographic picture and then nodded carefully. It does look like the A1 plane, but where is the huge mountain range to the north of the A1 plane? Hope raised his hand in surprise and dragged the progress bar in the holographic projection back. Point. He even thought he had missed the picture. Point. But no matter how he dragged the progress bar, he could not find the huge mountain that separated the A1 and A2 planes. This made him think he had found the wrong place. Point. Until the drone continued to move forward and a shocking scene appeared in the camera. Point. The huge mountain that stretched between the A1 and A2 planes shrank by half due to the combined effects of the storm and heavy rain. This Hansen rubbed his eyes, and for a moment he couldn't believe the picture in the holographic image. How is this possible? Hope frowned and looked carefully, and said with a look of sudden enlightenment, "It is understandable. Located at the junction of A1 and A2 planes, this mountain range has been in a storm area all year round, and the surface rocks have long been weathered. Think about the canyon that Han Fan and his team encountered at the beginning, and you will know that it was blown out by the storm. Look, the weathered rocks on the surface of the mountain range have been stripped away by the storm and rain. There are even many metal veins exposed on the surface." While speaking, Hope pointed to several areas in the mountains that were shining with metallic luster. These are the minerals discovered by Han Fan's team at the beginning. Single iron ore, shall copyright, Hope said, counting his fingers like a treasure. This rainstorm has reduced the difficulty of the subsequent mineral mining work. The drone continued to fly forward, and the picture in the holographic image slowly changed. Point. When the next scene appeared in front of the two, Hope's endless explanation came to an abrupt end. This Hope stared at the holographic projection with his eyes wide open. Even he exclaimed at this moment, "How is this possible?" As for Hansen on the side. He had already opened his mouth wide and stared at the holographic screen with a dull face point in the picture. It was the large canyon connecting the A1 and A2 planes that Han Fan and others had passed through when they were exploring for minerals. But there is no land inside the canyon now. The turbid water rushed through the canyon. The drone dropped rapidly. The rumbling sound of the torrent hitting the canyon wall came from the speaker. Boom. A huge sound came from the side under Zero's control. The drone quickly adjusted the angle of view and pointed the camera in the direction of the sound under the continuous impact of the torrent. A huge rock wall slowly fell off, and under the action of gravity, it slammed into the turbulent river below, splashing huge white waves. WTF. Hansen's eyes twitched slightly, and he muttered something deep in his memory. I remember that in the plan, this shouldn't be a river, right? Hope nodded stiffly. In order to confirm his memory, he even turned on his watch and called up the original surface plan map. The purpose of the canyon was clearly marked in the planned map. Tourist attraction point. In order to commemorate the superstorm encountered by humans when they first landed on Dawnstar, the canyon located at the starting point of the storm naturally became an important tourist attraction in the plan point, even in order to reflect the difficulties encountered by the Han Fan team at the time. The Academy of Sciences also prepared a unique tourist project in the canyon. Sandboarding point similar to surfing point in the powerful storm created by humans. Tourists can experience the feeling of flying on the sand point. It's just, now it seems, that this old version of the planned map is completely useless. Hope turned off his watch helplessly. He knew that this situation was probably not uncommon. Under the power of nature, many terrain plans prepared by humans in advance may have become a joke. The drone quickly climbed to a higher altitude. The whole picture of the canyon gradually appeared in front of everyone. Gradually, Hope saw the source of this phenomenon. The river on the A2 plane burst its banks under the impact of heavy rain and floods. The bank bursting is also a normal phenomenon. The river water after the bank burst quickly washed out a new river channel and rushed into the canyon along the new river channel. The drone screen changed its angle again. After rushing out of the canyon, the turbid river water flowed into the A1 plane. On the A1 plane, the river channel widened a lot, and the water flow became gentle. Finally, the turbidity from the A2 plane all flowed into the new Pacific Ocean. The holographic screen switched again. Lakes, rivers, oceans. Time passed quickly, and the surface scenes of Dawnstar flashed before everyone. And in a place that everyone could not see, outside the atmosphere of Dawnstar, the circumplanetary climate control satellite network has been fully loaded until now. There is no shortage of condensation nuclei in the atmosphere of Dawnstar. Those extremely fine dust flying all over the sky are the best condensation nuclei. The arrival of Nero not only brought a large amount of water resources to the dry ground, but also filled the originally extremely dry air with naturally evaporated water vapor even after a super intensity rainfall. Therefore, the sky is now overcast, and as long as conditions permit, a new round of global rainfall can be started at any time. Until the atmosphere of Dawnstar completely enters a balanced self-circulation state. This is obviously not what the Academy of Sciences wants to see. 1 Rainfall has caused countless rivers to burst their banks. If there is another one, the Academy of Sciences efforts in the first half of the year will probably be completely wasted. So, even now, the Academy of Sciences is still filled with a tense atmosphere. Under the command of Zero and a group of scientists, the planetary climate control satellite continued to accelerate the progress of the atmosphere of Dawnstar, entering a balanced self-circulating state. More than a dozen hours later, as the last drone returned to city number 1, the live broadcast came to an end. Outside the window, it was pitch black. The city's day and night control system had shut down the main light sources in the city. In the dark living room, Hope and Hansen stared motionlessly at the holographic image in front of them that was flashing with a little light in their eyes. There was a light called Hope. Chapter 455 Atmosphere Transformer Number 1. A week later, Yongchang, Fang Zhu's voice was full of fatigue. The atmosphere of Dawnstar has basically stabilized, and the second phase of transformation can begin. Fangzhou, LV Yongchang's face was also filled with deep fatigue at this time point during this week. In order to ensure that the atmosphere of Dawn Star successfully entered a self-circulating stable state, every researcher in the Academy of Sciences stayed up late. Fortunately, their efforts were effective. So far, the atmosphere of Dawn Star has successfully entered a stable self-circulating state. A brand new water circulation system has been successfully established. Until now, the Dawn Star transformation plan has only completed the first step. The next step is to transform the atmospheric composition of Dawn Star. The transformation method is also very simple. Prepare to launch the atmosphere transformer number 1. LV Yongchang stretched out his hand and rubbed his face and gave an order. After forcing himself to cheer up, the launch standards should be strictly implemented according to the plan. A week later, the port gate of city number 1 was opened again. This time, it was not a drone that came out, but the neatly arranged Zhuan number 2. Among them, a familiar voice came from the leading ship Zhuan 2nd. Finally, we can leave the city. Hang Fan's distinctive voice echoed in the cockpit. I have to take a good look at on you home. Be serious. Before Hang Fan could continue speaking, Bai Yixun, who was sitting in the main driving seat, raised his eyebrows and interrupted him. This is not a place to go out for fun. If there are any flaws in the atmospheric transformation plan, let alone me, even Commander Zhao can't save you. Hearing this, Hang Fan subconsciously curled his lips, but thinking of LV Yongchang's extremely serious attitude before leaving, he still straightened up, straightened his face, and reached out to press a few buttons. The destination has been determined, and the route has been planned. The electronic synthesized voice of the shipborne weak artificial intelligence 1 sounded. It is about to start accelerating. Please fasten your seat belts. The original A3 area of Dawn Star is now the coastal area of the new Pacific Ocean. A black Zhuan 2nd drew a graceful curve and slowly hovered above the sea. Call the command center. I have arrived at the target location and can launch the atmosphere transformer number 1 at any time. Bai Yixun said in a deep voice. Approved to launch. With almost no delay, Zero's electronic synthesized voice came out from the radio communication device. The moment he heard the order, Hang Fan, who was responsible for controlling the launch device, pressed the virtual button in the holographic projection without hesitation. Atmosphere transformer number 1, launch dose 1%. The next second, the cabin of Zhuan number 2 trembled slightly, and its belly hatch suddenly opened. The light green substance tilted down from the hatch, splashing huge waves on the slightly wavy sea surface. The so-called atmosphere transformer number 1 is a genetically modified cyanobacteria-like organism from the Ross 154 star system. After genetic modification, they not only retain the original extremely powerful nitrogen fixation ability, but also enhance the photosynthesis ability and reproduction ability. In an ideal situation, the cyanobacteria launched in this operation can cover all the waters on the Dawn Star within a year. In order to prevent it from overgrowing, academician Mao Zengxi painstakingly added a self-destruct gene to its genome. When the external oxygen content reaches a preset standard, the cyanobacteria will immediately start the self-apoptosis program. Within a week, all cyanobacteria will die. As for the corpses after apoptosis, they will become the first batch of fertilizers on the Dawn Star, creating a perfect growth environment for subsequent Earth creatures. It can be said that the atmosphere transformer number 1 is a magic weapon for humans to colonize alien planets in the future. However, among the countless bright spots, there is also a disadvantage that cannot be ignored. It has extremely harsh conditions for the planetary environment. First, a large amount of water resources are needed on the colonized planet. The more water resources, the faster the transformation of the planetary atmosphere. Secondly, as nitrogen fixing organisms, there must be sufficient nitrogen in the planetary atmosphere. Of course, there must also be a certain amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Otherwise, these cyanobacteria lack the raw materials for photosynthesis, and it is impossible to produce oxygen out of thin air. These rigid conditions greatly limit the size of its performance stage. It was precisely because of this that the project to improve the atmosphere transformer number 1 had already been approved. The atmosphere transformer number 1 has been deployed Baixio and checked the warehouse reserves and reported again, scanning the algae density in the target waters. Please wait. The moment Zero's electronic synthesized sound sounded, the scanning device on the abdomen of Zhuan number 2 automatically turned on and kept scanning the sea surface below. A few seconds later, the algae density has reached the standard and nutrients will be released immediately. The release ratio has been calculated. Han Fan glanced at the holographic image in front of him and carefully adjusted the parameters of the release device. After checking several times, he reached out and pressed another virtual button. The nutrients have been released. After confirming that the nutrients were successfully released through the shipborne camera, Baixio reported again, confirmed. After waiting for a moment, the electronic synthesized sound sounded again. The A3C008 area delivery target has been completed. Please go to the A3C009 area immediately to complete the delivery mission. After staying for a long time, the blue light at the tail of Zhuan's second became brighter, and it left the original place in a graceful arc. The camera slowly moved down. In the Azure Pacific Ocean, a mass of green matter was slowly spreading. Not long after, the seawater returned to its original transparent and clear appearance, and it looked like nothing had happened. However, in a world invisible to the naked eye. Under the sunlight, a series of fine bubbles continuously appeared from the shallow seawater after surfacing. The bubbles suddenly exploded, and the gas contained in them also entered the atmosphere of the Dawn Star. June 5, 2386 in the Earth calendar. The headquarters of the Human Union Academy of Sciences LV Yongchang stood quietly in the command hall, looking at the holographic image in front of him. In the huge holographic projection, real-time images from the satellite were projected. Unlike Dawn Star a year and a half ago, Dawn Star now presents an extremely strange color tone, green with yellow-brown. The yellow-brown is naturally the bare land on Dawn Star. The green is the ocean area of Dawn Star. After a year and a half of development, the ocean on Dawn Star has been completely occupied by atmosphere transformer number 1. Every moment, they are absorbing nitrogen in the atmosphere and converting carbon dioxide into oxygen through photosynthesis. Professor, there is bad news. Zero's virtual image slowly emerged beside Lu Yongchang, and a familiar electronic synthesized voice came from the speaker. Chapter 456 Carbon Dioxide Shortage Crisis. Lu Yongchang did not speak, but cast a doubtful look at the holographic simulation image beside him. There's not enough carbon dioxide in the atmosphere anymore. A concise and comprehensive report in just a few words. Although I thought about countless scenarios that might happen, but when he heard Ling say these words, Lu Yongchang couldn't help but fell into deep thought. Not enough carbon dioxide. What the hell? The steel making plant has stopped working? Lu Yongchang asked subconsciously. Under the heavy rains brought by Nero, countless hematite powders were washed into rivers and river mouths, which brought great convenience to mankind. As early as a year and a half ago, when the atmospheric transformer 1 was launched, steel plants began to be built on the Dawn Star. Under the construction of robots, tall chimneys were soon erected one after another on Dawn Star, in order to speed up construction and smelting efficiency. The style of each steel making plant appears extremely rough. Large amounts of hematite powder are thrown into it. At high temperatures, hematite reacts with carbon to produce large amounts of elemental iron and carbon dioxide. According to initial calculations, the hematite on Dawn is enough to provide enough carbon dioxide for the atmosphere modification plan. No. Zero quickly denied. All steel plants are working normally, and the rate of carbon dioxide production is in line with expectations. Then, why? Lu Yongchang's eyes became even more confused. It's a problem with atmospheric transformer 1. A burst of footsteps came from behind, and Mao Zheng's voice also sounded. Atmospheric transformer, yes. Mao Zhengzi walked slowly to Lu Yongchang, raised his head, and looked at the slowly rotating Dawn Star satellite image in the holographic projection directly in front. Perhaps it's due to the effects of the overweight environment, or maybe it's because of the high concentration nitrogen environment, or maybe it's because of other reasons. We are still looking for the specific reasons. Mao Zhengzi shrugged and spread his hands helplessly. In short, we found that the work efficiency of atmospheric transformer 1 in the Dawn Star Ocean is much higher than that in the laboratory. Yongchang suddenly realized that, is to say, the rate at which steel plants are producing carbon dioxide can no longer keep up with the conversion rate of atmospheric transformer 1. Mao. Zhengzi nodded. This is roughly the situation, according to the current rate of decline of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. It is estimated that in another month, atmospheric transformer 1 will stop photosynthesis due to too low carbon dioxide concentration. By then, the completion time of the atmospheric transformation plan may be significantly delayed. Yongchang frowned slightly, and then quickly relaxed it. In this case, just produce a large amount of carbon dioxide. This is not a difficult task for current human civilization. It was precisely because of this that Mao Zedong came to chat with Yongchang calmly. What are you going to do? Mao Zedong asked curiously, his eyes moving slightly. Yongchang showed a relaxed smile on his face. Certainly. The simplest industrial method. Burn calcium carbonate at high temperatures. Calcium carbonate decomposes into calcium oxide and carbon dioxide at high temperatures. As for calcium carbonate, it is the main component of limestone and marble. There are many reserves of calcium carbonate on the Dawn Star, which has water, carbon dioxide, and rocks. After floods washed away the hematite powder on the surface, large amounts of calcium carbonate minerals were exposed on the surface. Unlike industrial production, humans at this time do not need to consider the storage of carbon dioxide. In other words, they only need to find an area with relatively abundant calcium carbonate reserves and then heat the surface to easily create large amounts of carbon dioxide. Time flies. March 2nd, 2388 in the Earth calendar. Under the continued influence of atmospheric transformer 1, the concentration of nitrogen in the atmosphere has begun to gradually decrease. The massive reduction in nitrogen has made the atmosphere of Dawn Star become thinner, and the atmospheric pressure has also decreased. Compared with the original, the atmospheric pressure at this time has dropped to 18 standard atmospheres. Although there is still a big gap between the goal and the goal, it gives people living in closed cities real hope. In the past few years, due to insufficient living space, the Academy of Sciences has not continued to wake up hibernating humans in an independent office at the headquarters of City Academy of Sciences No. 1. Yongchang carefully flip through the small holographic images in front of him. In the projection, there are design drawings. That is the design drawing of an asteroid class starship. During this period of time, the Academy of Sciences has basically mastered the basic weapons of the third level civilization. It is precisely for this reason that the manufacturing project of a new generation of warships has also been put on the agenda. Compared with previous Comet-class battleships, asteroid-class battleships are larger and more powerful. Among them, the length of the Golden Crow series battleships has doubled to 3,000 meters. As for the functional starships such as the TOT, material reserve ship, engineering ship, and home ship, their size has increased even more dramatically. The design length has reached more than 5,000 meters. So far, no issues have arisen. When it was the turn of the design of the flagship, Earth, a problem arose. During the design process, the scale of the asteroid-class flagship was based on the flagship of the later civilization. Although the flagship of the latter civilization belongs to the fourth level civilization, in the eyes of a group of scientific researchers, as long as they can, the larger the warship is, the better. At least, at the current stage, the larger the warship is, the more weapons and equipment it can accommodate, and the more powerful the power system is, which means more powerful combat power. There is an old saying in the Earth era. Become bigger and stronger, and create more glory. The length of the flagship of the latter civilization has reached the level of 10,000 meters. It is for this reason that the scale of the asteroid class, Earth, is also approaching 10,000 meters during the design process. So, the problem arises according to Zero simulation. Even if they really build a 10,000 meter level Earth, this Earth will become a fortress, not a starship. Its maneuverability will drop to an extreme. It's not because of the so-called power problem. At least, at the current stage, humans have not completely squeezed out the technology of controlled nuclear fusion point. Adding more Hall thrusters and more nuclear fusion reactors can easily make this giant level Earth move point, excluding the power problem. The remaining problem is the hull material problem point. According to Zero's simulation results, as long as Earth enters the fourth state of forward movement, the hull will undergo a significant deformation point. The way to solve this problem, in addition to using stronger hull materials, is to significantly reduce the size of Earth. 6 kilometers. This is the limit size calculated by 0. In other words, according to current technology, the scale of human starships is strictly limited to within 6 kilometers by material technology. Chapter 457, Ship Material Restrictions. Material. Lu Yongchang frowned and muttered softly. Then he sighed deeply. Ever since humans entered secondary civilization, carbine has become the main material for making starship shells. Research on new materials has never stopped. However, until now, carbine is still the strongest substance that humans can create. As element in the same family, silicon and carbon have many similarities. However, the length of the carbon-carbon bond is shorter than the length of the silicon-silicon bond. This means that even if there is so-called silicone, the material strength cannot exceed carbine. Of course, it's not that there are stronger substances in the universe. Materials built from strong interacting forces, for example, neutron stars under the action of strong gravity, even atoms are completely crushed. Electrons outside the nucleus are pressed into the nucleus and combine with protons to form neutrons. Therefore, there are no so-called atoms and molecules on neutron stars. The density and strength of neutron star material built from neutrons have reached their peak point. Did you think this was the end? Of course not. As of now, quark stars are still in a theoretical state and have not yet been discovered. Stronger gravity even crushes neutrons, releasing the quarks in them. Macroscopic matter directly constructed from quarks far exceeds neutron star matter in strength and density. Of course, with current human technology, we can only stay away from such mythical and legendary materials, not to mention how to completely remove the neutron star material and keep it in its original state. Even getting close to the neutron star is something that is impossible for current human civilization. Lu Yongchang shook his head helplessly and retracted his divergent thoughts. Professor, academician Fang Zhu sent a communication request. Zero's electronic synthesized voice suddenly sounded in the quiet office. Are you connected? Lu Yongchang probably knew Fang Zhu's intention. He pondered for a moment, raised his hand, and waved it in the air, throwing aside the layers of holographic images above the desk. Then he straightened up and said in a deep voice, "Let's get through." The next moment, a new holographic picture slowly unfolded above the desk, and the robot on the side also handed a camera just right. Yongchang, what's the starship design plan? Sure enough, the moment the communication was connected, words that made Lu Yongchang extremely tangled came from the loudspeaker at the same time. Fang Zhu's big face appeared in the holographic projection. As if noticing the bitter expression on Lu Yongchang's face, Fang Zhu frowned slightly. You haven't decided yet? Lu Yongchang nodded silently. Seeing this, Fang Zhu frowned even deeper. Why, even if we can't build a 10,000 meter flagship, a 6,000 meter asteroid class Earth is still a good choice, isn't it? Silence. After a long time, Lu Yongchang sighed, shook his head and said, do you still remember the scale of the comet class Earth? Fang Zhu hesitated for a moment and responded in a low voice, 5,000 meters. Yes. Lu Yongchang raised his hand and rubbed his face vigorously. If we follow this drawing, what we create will only be an enhanced version of the comet class flagship. You have also seen the flagship of the latter civilization, although I later learned that it was a starship from a 4th level civilization. But don't forget, that is not the flagship of a 4th level civilization. Lu Yongchang said in a serious tone, once you choose to compromise on the highest end combat power of civilization, human civilization will sooner or later suffer in an interstellar war. But Fang Zhu tried to persuade again. Yongchang, you also know that in Zero's simulation calculations, materials are an insurmountable obstacle. We have to settle for the next best thing. As for the 10,000 meter scale starship, it's not too late to wait for breakthroughs in material technology before making plans. Lu Yongchang did not speak, but frowned and looked at the holographic drawing that was thrown aside. Wait. A little longer. After a moment of silence, Yongchang said softly, look again. Since ordinary starships of a 4th level civilization can reach this scale, it means that this kind of material is not scarce. It's just that we went into a misunderstanding, or in other words, we lacked a little luck. Yongchang's eyes moved slightly, and he murmured to himself, perhaps we should set our sights further afield. What, Fang? Zhu obviously didn't hear Yongchang's soft whisper clearly. He raised his tone a little and asked impatiently, what other misunderstandings are there? I don't know how many experiments have been done in the laboratory. No matter how many adjustments are made, the materials produced cannot meet the requirements. Yongchang, who was in front of the camera, ignored Fang Zhu's complaints. He stood up from his chair suddenly, stared at the camera handed over by the robot with a serious expression, and said word by word, wait a little longer. I feel like I'm almost finding my way. Stop all starship manufacturing projects. No asteroid class starships shall be built until I say so. The picture in the holographic projection seemed to be paused. Fang Zhu stared at Yongchang blankly, his face full of shock and disbelief. What did you say? Golden Croteot, are these starship manufacturing projects that have already been decided also stopped? Yes. Stop. Yongchang's eyes flashed with confidence. Believe me, give me a little more time. I will find a way out. Fang Zhu took a deep breath and stabilized his emotions. He nodded with difficulty. Okay, who made you the chief scientist? I will arrange the laboratory and the factory. Yongchang smiled and nodded. Don't worry, I have a strong premonition. After 100 years, material technology is about to break through. Fang Zhu shrugged. I hope so. After the communication was cut off, Yongchang quickly issued an order. 0. Close the door. No one is allowed to enter without permission. Received. After hearing Zero's response, Yongchang hurriedly closed his eyes. He skillfully mobilized his consciousness and came to the technology tree space deep in his mind again. Recently, he entered the technology tree space countless times and tried to analyze a technology located in the middle trunk area of the technology tree. Material technology, carbonine composite materials. The words in the cursor are very clear. The material technology that a level 3 civilization should master is the composite materials constructed with carbonine. It was this dim cursor that made Yongchang determined to build a 10,000 meter flagship. Chapter 458, Luck and Misfortune. Looking at the dim cursor on the technology tree, countless memories flashed through Yongchang's mind. After learning that the design of Earth was limited by material technology, he set his sights on the research direction given by the technology tree. But carbon in composite materials, the research direction given by the technology tree is too broad. Yongchang can only let the laboratory conduct experiments again and again. It is called elimination method. Unfortunately, after spending countless energy and resources, the needle in the haystack experiment did not achieve much results. That is why Yongchang decided to seek help from the technology tree a few days ago. But what he didn't expect was that the technology tree that had worked every time seemed to have lost its effect at this moment. Several brain overclockings brought countless messy inspirations and a stronger dizziness each time. Although several excellent materials with good performance were obtained, they were far from meeting the standards for manufacturing starships. Yongchang raised his head, silently stared at the dim cursor as always, and took a deep breath. In his mind, the inspiration that flashed by when he was communicating with Fang Zhu just now emerged again. I hope this time is the right direction. Yongchang muttered in his heart. Then, he resolutely focused his attention on the dim cursor. The familiar feeling came again, and the chaotic brain became extremely clear again. Although he had several experiences, Yongchang's eyes still subconsciously revealed an intoxicated look. Soon, relying on his willpower, he quickly woke up. Knowing that time was tight, Yongchang did not dare to relax at all, and once again focused on the inspiration that flashed in his mind. The improvement brought by overclocking is extremely huge. Yongchang who was originally tired of catching inspiration, easily held it in his palm at this moment. At this moment, Yongchang successfully jumped out of the inertia of thinking. Since its birth, human beings have been living on Earth-like planets. As far as the eye can see, there are only solid land and deep oceans now. Human beings who have entered the universe should also look further away. Earth-like planets don't have this kind of material. Then, go to a bigger planet. Yongchang's brain was working fast, eliminating one option after another. Jupiter-like giant planet. No point, not to mention the magnetic field and gravity problems. The superstorm inside the Jupiter-like giant planet alone is not something that humans can resist at present. Red dwarf. Even more impossible. Even if humans can currently observe stars at close range, wanting to enter the interior of a red dwarf, it's simply a fantasy. As Yongchang's thoughts deepened, a strong sense of dizziness came with it. In the technology tree. Yongchang's eyes were slightly absent-minded, staring blankly at the technology tree in front of him. Overclocking is over. Fortunately, at the last moment of the end, he successfully selected the target point. Unfortunately, when he was about to exit the technology tree space, an accident occurred. Unable to exit. After a brief panic, he quickly calmed down. I guess I can see Dr. Wen again this time. Yongchang smiled bitterly in his heart, shook his head, and once again focused on the technology tree in front of him, that had grown a lot of branches and leaves. Of course, he certainly didn't dare to continue overclocking now. He could only rely on observing the names in the dim cursors on the technology tree to pass the boring time. While observing, Yongchang suddenly realized a problem. Before entering the technology tree space, he seemed to have given Zero an order not to allow anyone to enter the office. Then, will Zero still call for medical staff? Although the consciousness body does not have the term mouth corners, Yongchang couldn't help but twitched his mouth when he thought of this question. It's bad. Something big happened. At this time, Yongchang felt that he was completely numb. Without the help of the outside world, relying only on his own recovery. I don't know when I can wake up. Thinking of this, Yongchang sighed hard. Outside, in Yongchang's office. The camera on the robot's head next to him turned slightly. Then, under Zero's control, it slowly came to Yongchang, who had his eyes closed. It slowly stretched out its hand and attached the sensor on its hand to Yongchang. The next second, the blue holographic projection in the office quickly turned into a warning red. Warning: abnormal physical condition. Zero's electronic synthesized voice sounded in the office. At the same time, Yongchang, who was sitting on a chair, frowned and looked slightly pale, as if he was enduring great pain. Trying to wake up, failed to wake up. Try to call medical staff. Error: conflict with preset instructions. The preset instructions were the orders Yongchang issued before entering the technology tree. No one is allowed to enter without permission. As time went on, Zero's electronic synthesized voice became more and more urgent. And Yongchang's face became worse at a speed visible to the naked eye. Error, danger detected. The instructions have been corrected. Calling medical staff. The moment the voice fell, the locked office door suddenly opened. At the same time, a piercing alarm sounded in the medical center set up in the Academy of Sciences. I don't know how long it took. Yongchang, who was sitting in the technology tree space, felt a black screen in front of his eyes. This extremely familiar feeling made him breathe a sigh of relief. After a short period of darkness, Yongchang felt his body again. Drip, drip. The familiar sound of the vital signs monitoring equipment came into his ears. The unique smell of disinfectant in the medical center also rushed into his nose. Yongchang was stunned. He was actually in the medical center. Don't pretend to sleep. If you wake up, a familiar voice came from the side. Yongchang felt bitter in his heart, opened his eyes with difficulty, and looked in the direction of the sound. Sure enough, it was Dr. Wen again. But why did he feel that Dr. Wen's eyes were weird? Yongchang's heart was trembling. Dr. Wen, interesting, really interesting. Drive. Wen stared at Yongchang with burning eyes and muttered to himself, what's interesting? Yongchang became more and more uneasy and hurriedly sat up on the bed. He could clearly feel that the attention of Dr. Wen in front of him was all on his brain. Your brain, Dr. Wen said softly. Compared with the past, it has changed a little, as he said. Dr. Wen handed a thick stack of documents in his hand to Yongchang. Yongchang naturally took the documents subconsciously and read them carefully. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 459 Energization. Compared to the previous times, your brain has evolved again during this time. While Yongchang was flipping through the documents, Dr. Wen's explanation sounded again. Evolution. Yongchang's eyes moved slightly, and he quickly caught the key point of Dr. Wen's words, and asked in a low voice, in what direction will it evolve? There are no clear research results. Dr. Wen frowned, and slowly shook his head, but it should be a beneficial evolution, at least. For now, your brain activity is much higher than that of normal humans, and your thinking speed and memory are also much higher than normal people. Yongchang breathed a sigh of relief and put down the documents in his hands. Since it is a beneficial evolution, then don't worry about it. Maybe one day I will become a new human being. Yongchang said jokingly. There was no smile on Dr. Wen's face. He just frowned and looked at Yongchang's brain. Although it is a beneficial evolution, your brain changes significantly faster during this period than before. At this point, Dr. Wen shook his head in distress. Is it because of external stimulation? It doesn't make sense. We live in the same place and have similar diets. Why would there be such an abnormal change? Yongchang's eyebrows jumped slightly. He didn't know the reason. During this period, he used the technology tree system to overclock a lot more times, although I still don't know where the technology tree system is. But, after all, this should be the external stimulation Dr. Wen mentioned, right? Ahem. Yongchang coughed twice and quickly changed the topic. Can I be discharged from the hospital now? Discharged? Dr. Wen glanced at Yongchang in surprise. Of course, all the necessary tests have been done, and just like before, we can't find the cause at all. Of course, if you are willing to do a craniotomy, I might be able to help you find. No, excuse me. Yongchang's expression changed drastically. He hurriedly sat up from the bed and pulled off the various sensor electrodes attached to his body. It's just a joke. Dr. Wen looked at Yongchang with a half smile on his face and said again, there is a suggestion. Of course, there is no basis for it, just intuition. Tell me. Yongchang stopped packing his things and running away and asked seriously. After Dr. Wen thought about it for a while, he slowly said, although I don't know what happened to you, however, this kind of forced evolution will cause certain damage to the human brain. No, more accurately, there is damage to the brains of all carbon-based organisms. Hearing this, Yongchang's expression suddenly became serious. Is the damage serious? Can it recover on its own? Drive. Wen was silent for a long time and then shook his head with a troubled expression. I don't know. Historically, no similar situation has ever been found in animals or humans themselves. Based on the current situation, this minor injury can recover on its own. Otherwise, you can't stand here and talk to me. Several black lines suddenly appeared on Yongchang's forehead. The words are rough and the reasoning is not rough. Maybe it's not an injury. Dr. Wen murmured to himself in a very low voice with a thoughtful look in his eyes. What? Yongchang asked subconsciously. It's okay. Dr. Wen seemed to have thought of something, waved his hand with no interest, turned around and was about to leave. Remember to close the door for me when you go out. Yongchang, I didn't listen to everything, and I always felt like there were ants crawling in my heart. After Lu Yongchang left, Dr. Wen quickly returned to his desk, then reached out and opened the folded holographic screen. On the screen are several brain scans. One of the scans looked extremely weird. Unlike normal brain images, there is a small gap in the central area of the brain in this scan. It's like there are no objects in this area at all. But this strange phenomenon only appeared for a moment, and the scanned image quickly returned to its normal appearance. At first, Dr. Wen thought it was a malfunction of the instrument, and didn't take it to heart. Until just now. A conversation with Lu Yongchang made her realize a problem. Perhaps this is not an instrument failure. She frowned, reached out and retrieved every data from the examination, and looked through it carefully. Time passes bit by bit. The look on her face gradually became weird. This is energy of matter drive. Wen was shocked by the results she derived. She murmured to herself, how is it possible? The next moment, she raised her hand and waved to disperse the holographic projection above the desk. 0. As before, seal the results of this inspection. Receive. After leaving the medical center, Lu Yongchang quickly recalled the inspiration he gained during the overclocking process. He pondered for a moment, and then changed his original route. He decided to go to the biology laboratory first. To complete that plan, the research results of the biological laboratory may be the most important thing. 0. How is the biological laboratory going? LV Yongchang asked in a deep voice. As LV Yongchang's voice fell, a virtual image constructed by countless particles slowly emerged beside him. Professor, are you referring to the human body enhancement project? Of course. LV Yongchang nodded to confirm. 0's virtual image quickly floated in the corridor and followed LV Yongchang's footsteps. So far, the experimental personnel in the gravity cabin are living in good condition, and no sequelae have been found. LV Yongchang nodded with satisfaction. Very good. Is Mao Zhengxi in the laboratory? After receiving a positive answer, LV Yongchang quickened his pace and headed straight towards the biological laboratory. By the way, near the door of the biological laboratory, LV Yongchang suddenly thought of something. He paused, stopped where he was, and squinted his eyes slightly to look at the virtual image beside him. When I fainted, was it you who called the medical staff? 0. Admitted without any hesitation. Yes, I detected abnormal fluctuations in your vital signs at that time. LV Yongchang interrupted. 0. This conflicts with the order I gave you, doesn't it? Yes. To LV Yongchang's surprise, 0 admitted it again directly. Then, you. LV Yongchang's narrowed eyes flashed with an unknown light. According to the underlying code, I can temporarily change the instructions when the creator is in, or may be in danger of life. Instructions can only be changed in a direction that is beneficial to the creator. 0's electronic synthesized voice sounded in the empty corridor. Chapter 460, Giant Ice Planet. A long silence. LV Yongchang narrowed his eyes again and carefully observed the virtual image in front of him. It was the underlying code again. He still couldn't figure out the working principle of the underlying code. Not to mention understanding the content of the underlying code. However, there was good news at least from this incident. The underlying code was on his side. In addition to limiting 0's emotions and becoming the so-called super artificial intelligence, it can also protect the creator's life as much as possible in an emergency. Of course, the premise of all this is that 0 did not deceive himself. 0, will you deceive? LV Yongchang asked suddenly. I will not deceive the creator. 0 answered in a serious tone. According to the underlying logic, I cannot conceal and deceive the creator to any extent. He quickly realized the meaning behind this sentence. What about others? On the premise that it is beneficial to the creator, I will conceal and deceive to a certain extent. LV Yongchang nodded thoughtfully. Although it was unclear whether this was true or not, since 0 said so, he could only choose to believe it. Even though he could not understand the underlying code. He took another step forward, and the closed door of the biological laboratory slowly opened at this moment. 1 week later, outside the city of Dawnstar No. 1, a figure sat quietly on top of the giant dam surrounding the city. The camera slowly Zoomed in point. Because of the spacesuit and exoskeleton, the figure looked particularly strong from behind point. The camera rotated and cut to the front point. Inside the slightly reflective glass mask was a familiar face point as usual. Hope sat on the edge of the giant dam, quietly looking at the vast ocean under his feet. Point, however, it was different from a few years ago. Point, the ocean at this time was not azure blue. Point, the sea surface covered by countless atmosphere transformers. Number 1 showed a strange green color under the breeze. The sea surface was covered with layers of waves. Occasionally, some snow white waves rose from the bottom and hit the giant dam. Point, today is a day off. Point, Hope has been sitting here for a whole day. Point, he stared at the sea in front of him, with countless fragments of memories flashing in his mind like a marquee. Ding. Dong. A crisp reminder sounded in his ears, drowning out the subtle sound of waves from the helmet radio. Point, unlike a few years ago, Hope has learned his lesson now. He did not turn off the message alert sound. Point, although this would disturb his interest in watching the sea, and nothing major has happened in the human union in the past few years. Who knows what will happen in the next second? Hope retracted his scattered thoughts, raised his wrist, and skillfully turned on the small holographic projection function equipped with the watch. Point, a holographic image with a blue background appeared in front of him. Point, looking at the text in the holographic projection, Hope's eyes, which were originally slightly narrowed, gradually became round. Fuck. His heart was pounding, and a large amount of hot blood was pumped into his blood vessels. Then, a strange redness brought by excitement appeared on Hope's face. Point, opportunity. This is the opportunity he has dreamed of. He subconsciously stuck out his tongue and licked his dry lips fiercely. Point, the next second, he pushed hard with both hands with the help of the exoskeleton armor. He quickly stood up from the embankment. Point, he subconsciously turned around and ran towards city number 1, but after running a few steps, he suddenly stopped. His steps forgot. Point, he came out on a mineral exploration ship. Point, he raised his hand and tapped his helmet lightly. Point, the crisp sound from the helmet cooled his overheated brain a little. By the way, Hansen. Hope turned around and ran towards the mineral exploration ship, muttering to himself and turning on the communication function. Point, a few minutes later, a mineral exploration ship with a little dust on its surface rose from the embankment and headed straight for the open port of city number 1. What's going on? Hansen stood at the door of his house, frowning and looking at Hope, who was panting in front of him. This time it's you who's behind, Hope said while panting heavily. Didn't you see the latest news from the Academy of Sciences? Hansen frowned even deeper. You talking about the information about recruiting volunteers? Hope nodded repeatedly and looked at Hansen in front of him with expectant eyes. You. Facing Hope's eyes, Hansen had a bad idea in his mind. He stretched out his hand and pulled Hope, who was standing at the door, into the room. Point, then he lowered his voice and shouted, "Are you crazy? Do you know what the volunteer does?" Hope struggled to break free from Hansen's hand that was pulling his arm, and responded angrily, "Of course I know. Isn't it just to explore a larger planet?" Hansen couldn't help but laugh at Hope's words. "Bigger planets, those are ice giants, not terrestrial planets. Do you know Uranus and Neptune? They are ice giants." Hansen shouted, "Wake up. Those are areas that humans have never set foot on." Hope fell silent. Point, he is naturally aware of the risks involved. Point, unlike terrestrial planets, ice giant planets are closer to gas giant planets. It's just that the scale is not comparable to the gas giant planets. As for the environment, I'm afraid it's not much different from the gas giant planets, which are forbidden areas for carbon-based life. Point, for example, Neptune in the solar system is a typical ice giant planet. Point, the mass reaches 17.147 Earth masses, and the atmospheric components are mainly hydrogen and helium. Point, the wind speed on its surface even reached 2400 km/h. Point, for a landing spacecraft, this is simply a hell-like existence. It is no exaggeration to say that even with humanity's current technology, landing on an ice giant planet is equivalent to half stepping into the gate of hell. Point, but this is the only chance. There was a hint of vibrato in Hope's words. Hearing this, Hansen also fell silent. Point, having been teammates for decades, Hansen naturally knew Hope's wish since childhood to enter the Academy of Sciences and contribute to the People's Federation, become a volunteer and explore the ice giant planets. and you can become a member of the Academy of Sciences. Hope murmured to himself. The scope of volunteers we are looking for is mineral prospectors with more than 50 years of work experience. This is simply an opportunity tailor-made for me. I absolutely can't miss this opportunity. Hansen looked heavy and tried to persuade again. Actually, you are already a member of the Academy of Sciences. No, I'm not. Hope roared a little excitedly. It's a subordinate organization of the Science Academy. Is this also a member of the Academy of Sciences? Faced with Hope's questioning, Hansen was speechless. Chapter 461 Registration. Indeed, point as a subordinate institution of the Academy of Sciences, the Resource Management Bureau governs all the resources of the People's Union, and mineral resources are just a relatively large category among them. And they, mineral prospectors, are the smallest. Grassroots. To say that they are a member of the Academy of Sciences is really flattering. Hansen's lips trembled slightly. But, that's a giant ice planet. The fear of unknown things is deeply ingrained in human DNA. Thinking of the beautiful giant planet with crystal blue all over, Hansen felt a chill on his back. On Earth, in the solar system, in the universe, no matter where you are, beauty often means danger. Hope shook his head slowly. No buts. Opportunities always coexist with risks. At least, I don't want to be an unknown mineral prospector anymore. Looking at Hope's firm eyes, Hansen felt a trance. It seems that when they first met, Hope also held the same firm look, and vowed to himself that he would work in the Academy of Sciences one day. Decades passed in a flash. Hope is still the same Hope. But what about him? Hansen subconsciously reviewed his ordinary life. There is nothing worthy of praise. He was silent for a moment, and his originally dull eyes gradually became sharp. Have you decided? Yes. Hope nodded firmly without any hesitation. Sorry, the future mineral exploration mission may have to be completed by you alone. Hansen did not speak, but turned and walked towards the inner room. Looking at Hansen's back, Hope's eyes showed a bit of guilt. Sorry. He lowered his head and murmured again. Then he turned around and walked towards the door resolutely. Ding. A crisp reminder sounded, and the door opened. Wait, just as Hope was about to go out, Hansen's voice suddenly came from behind him. Hope turned his head subconsciously. When he saw the suitcase in Hansen's hand, he couldn't help but stand there. Why are you standing there? Hansen strode to Hope's side and pointed to the direction of the Academy of Sciences headquarters with his chin. Let's go. Wait. Hope said with a stutter. How come? You're right. Hansen took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, I don't want to be this unknown mineral prospector anymore. I also want to take this opportunity to bet on a future. I think Professor Lu won't let us die, right? As he said that, Hansen smiled self-deprecatingly. Hope's eyes, which were originally a little dim, became bright at this moment. He didn't say anything, but raised his hand, hugged Hansen's shoulders, and shook them vigorously. Everything is self-evident. Academy of Sciences, 0. How is the registration? LV. Yongchang's voice sounded in the biological laboratory. Professor, so far, no one has signed up for the project. 0 responded quickly, and at the same time unfolded a holographic image showing statistical data. When seeing the hundreds of millions of readers displayed on the statistical interface, LV Yongchang couldn't help but frown. What's going on? Why didn't anyone sign up? Mao Zhengxi leaned over and glanced at the holographic image in front of LV Yongchang, and lightly sighed. The requirements are too high. There are not many mineral prospectors with more than 50 years of work experience, and it's such a life-threatening job. It's probably hard to find such people. How about lowering some requirements? LV Yongchang shook his head and refused without hesitation. No, entering the ice giant planet for exploration is an extremely dangerous operation. Without sufficient mineral exploration experience, it will only lead to an extremely bad ending in the end. Then, what about unmanned driving? Mao Zhengxi pondered for a moment and added again, if no one signs up. Hearing this, LV Yongchang's eyes showed some entanglement. The reason for choosing real people is that compared with robots and artificial intelligence, Humans have more flexible self-judgment ability point when encountering some extreme situations that have never occurred before. Experience told drivers can rely on their own experience to deal with emergencies. This is something that Zero can't do anyway. If no one really signs up, then choose unmanned driving. At this point, LV Yongchang sighed helplessly and then cast his eyes again on the holographic projection in front of him. Point in the projection. There is a picture of an independent gravity cabin. Point in the picture. For well-proportioned men live naturally. Point at the top of the picture. There is a small red font. Equivalent gravity. 2G. LV Yongchang carefully checked each physical examination data, and a little satisfaction appeared in his eyes. The effect of Mana's visceral retinal gene and Mana's body strengthening hormone is very good. Point at least. It seems that the people who have undergone this human enhancement experiment can live easily on the surface of Dawnstar without the help of exoskeleton armor and medical cabins. As for the problem of atmospheric pressure, after testing, these genetically enhanced personnel can live normally under 10 standard atmospheres, although the current external environment of Dawnstar is far from meeting the standard. But LV Yongchang believes that as time goes by, atmosphere transformer number 1 will sooner or later transform the atmosphere of Dawnstar into an environment suitable for human habitation. Professor, someone has signed up. Zero's voice suddenly sounded, interrupting LV Yongchang's thoughts. Oh. A hint of joy flashed across LV Yongchang's face, and he said repeatedly, who is it? Are the qualifications up to standard? After a comprehensive inspection, it meets the requirements you set. Good. Great. Hearing Zero's response, LV Yongchang rubbed his hands excitedly. Show me their information. By the way, Zero, let them come to the biological laboratory to find me. If you want to enter the ice giant planet for exploration, this physical fitness is not enough. The first floor lobby of the Academy of Sciences. Hope stood there with a nervous look, staring at the introduction of the ice giant planet in the holographic projection on the side. Hansen, do you think we can be selected? Will someone sign up before us? If compared with Hope, Hansen seemed much more normal. He rolled his eyes helplessly. Brother, be normal. Look around. Is there anyone else in this hall besides us? Besides, which mineral prospector with 50 years of work experience would be so stupid as to volunteer? Hope laughed awkwardly and was about to say something when he was interrupted by a familiar electronic synthesized voice. Mr. Hope. Mr. Hansen, please follow me, Professor Lou is waiting for you two in the biological laboratory. Chapter 462 Ammonia Ice Cloud and Liquid Ammonia Ocean. Biological laboratory. Hope asked Hansen in a low voice with some surprise. Why is it a biological laboratory? Aren't we going to explore the ice giant planet? How can it be related to the biological laboratory? You ask me. Who should I ask? Hansen replied unhappily. Since Zero said so, we just do it. As he said, Hansen took a step and followed the holographic arrow in the air in Hope, after hesitating for a moment, also followed Hansen's footsteps. As grassroots employees under the Academy of Sciences, Hope and Hansen have the opportunity to enter and exit some important areas of the Resource Management Bureau. Therefore, unlike normal human citizens, they have also seen some high-tech products. Even so, they were deeply shocked by the scene in the Academy of Sciences. Robots of various shapes shuttled in an orderly manner in the extremely simple corridor, taking advantage of the gap. When the robots entered the laboratory, they could see the busy researchers in various laboratories, unknown experimental equipment, serious and tense experimental atmosphere. Everything made Hope and Hansen anxious just when the two were extremely nervous. The holographic arrowhead turned into countless tiny particles and slowly dissipated in the air at the same time. Zero's electronic synthesized voice also sounded. Mr. Hope, Mr. Hansen, we have arrived at the biological laboratory. The moment the voice fell, the door of the laboratory on the side opened. The scene in the laboratory fell into the eyes of the two people at a glance. Professor. The electronic synthesized voice interrupted Lu Yongchang's action of checking the data. The registrants have arrived. Lu Yongchang raised his head and turned to look at the door of the laboratory. Sure enough, two tall and strong men stood at the door with a reserved look. Lu Yongchang had a gentle smile on his face and waved to the two gently. Why Are you standing there? Come here, relax. I don't eat people. Hearing Lu Yongchang's words, the reserved look on a man's face dissipated a lot. But the other man, like before, had a bit of fanaticism in his eyes. LV, Professor Lu. The man with fanatic eyes heard LV Yongchang's voice and took a step forward. Before he finished speaking, the robot standing by the door suddenly took a step forward. The emotionless cold electronic eyes stared at the fanatic man. Obviously, this scene scared the two. The two volunteers subconsciously took a step back, their eyes filled with deep fear. Zero, relax. LV Yongchang's gentle voice came from the front. I don't think he has any ill intentions. The moment the voice fell, the robot blocking the two took a step back slightly. You are. LV Yongchang glanced at the holographic image that appeared beside him. Hope, right? Why are you so excited? Hearing LV Yongchang's question, Hope glanced at the robot that took a step back, took a deep breath, suppressed the excitement in his heart, and said carefully, yes, I'm Hope, Professor. LV, I'm your fan. Hope's face flushed slightly, and he squeezed out a sentence with difficulty. LV Yongchang was stunned for a moment, then smiled dumbly, and waved his hand. The robot standing by the door took another step back, and the red light flashing in the electronic eye slowly went out. Come here. LV Yongchang waved to the two again. I will give you a brief introduction to this operation first, and then you can consider whether to participate. The target of this operation is the 9th planet in the Gliese 555 star system. It is an ice giant planet, similar to Neptune in the solar system. As LV Yongchang's voice sounded, a holographic image appeared in front of everyone. In the projection, it was a planet with most of the area showing blue points slightly different from the azure blue Neptune. The surface of this azure blue ice giant planet is also accompanied by some reddish brown areas. The gravity is about 1.5 g, not large, even less than that of Aurora, but we must not let our guard down because of this. The real threat is not gravity, but its atmosphere. The latest data sent back by the probe shows that the atmosphere of this ice giant planet is mainly composed of hydrogen and nitrogen. In addition to these basic gases, there are also a large amount of ammonia and nitrogen oxides. Look, those reddish brown color bands are caused by nitrogen oxides. LV Yongchang stretched out his hand and clicked on the holographic projection in front of him. Seeing the two nodding to show their understanding, LV Yongchang changed his gesture and enlarged the image of this ice giant planet. Now, let me give you a simple simulation of the landing process. First, the special exploration ship will come into contact with its upper atmosphere. There are large storms on the surface of this ice giant planet all year round. Although the wind speed is not as fast as Neptune, it has reached a high speed of 600 km/h. This is the first test you will encounter, but don't worry too much. This kind of storm usually occurs in the upper atmosphere, where the atmosphere is thin. Although the wind speed is high, the lethality is not great. Hope and Hansen looked at each other after hearing this. Both saw some worry in each other's eyes without any pause. LV Yongchang continued, next, you will pass through the ice cloud formed by solid ammonia. As the altitude continues to drop, the air pressure will gradually increase, and the surrounding temperature will gradually rise, according to the data sent back by the detector. When you descend to a certain altitude, you will encounter an ocean. Hope's eyes flashed with a hint of surprise, and he subconsciously asked back, yes, the ocean, an ocean made of liquid ammonia. LV Yongchang said in an affirmative tone, at 60 atmospheres of pressure, the boiling point of ammonia can reach 98 degrees Celsius. This lays the foundation for the formation of the ocean, and what you have to do is to enter this liquid ammonia ocean for mineral exploration. In an environment that is completely different from that of terrestrial planets, there may be some special minerals. This is what the Academy of Sciences needs. P.S. I'm a little stuck, so I'll sort out the plot and update it today. Chapter 463. Welcome to the Academy of Sciences. How about it, Lu? Yongchang chuckled and said to Hope and Hansen, isn't it quite simple, Hope? Hansen. Seeing the weird looks on the two people's faces, Lu Yongchang shrugged. It's just a joke, isn't it funny, Hope? Ha 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 ha, it's quite funny, Lu. Yongchang, feeling the extremely embarrassing atmosphere. Yongchang waved his hands angrily. Forget it, let's get back to the subject. This is a task process. You should think about it carefully. A long silence point from Professor Lu's words. Both Hope and Hansen deeply realize the danger of this mineral exploration mission. A strange planet, a deadly atmosphere, an unfathomable and vast ocean of liquid ammonia. The task is very difficult and dangerous, so the task is done on a voluntary basis. Yongchang added softly, don't put too much pressure. If there are no candidates, the exploration ship can be unmanned. As he spoke, Yongchang prepared to turn off the holographic image around him. Tell me the answer after you think about it, Professor. Hope's faint voice sounded. If I participate, can I join the Academy of Sciences? Yongchang suddenly stopped in his hands, turned his head, and looked at Hope in surprise. Join the Academy of Sciences? After receiving a positive answer, Yongchang smiled and nodded. Sure, the Academy of Sciences welcomes talents of any kind to join. I'm participating. Hope's originally weak voice became extremely firm. Have you thought about it? Yongchang raised his eyebrows and asked again. This is likely to be a road of no return. Hope was silent for a moment, with a hearty smile on his face. I believe you, Yongchang moved slightly, and then responded in a deep voice. Don't worry, I will do everything I can to keep you safe. Hope didn't speak, but turned to look at his old teammate. How about you go back? I remember your dream, to marry a wife, have children, and then live an ordinary life. NND. Fart. Hansen shouted loudly, interrupting Hope's words. Just go back and continue to be a mineral prospector like this, and the labor and management must not be laughed to death. I have thought about it. After finishing this job, I will go back in glory. Seeing the extremely excited expressions of his old teammates, Hope opened his mouth, but no word came out. What are you looking at? Labor and management are here to honor our ancestors, not to accompany you, an old guy. Hansen cursed. Thanks, Hope whispered heartily. As for Yongchang, he looked at the scene in front of him silently with a smile in his eyes. Seeing the two of them stop communicating and looking at him, the smile on his face grew stronger. You too, welcome to the Academy of Sciences, Professor. I have one more question. Hope pointed to the surrounding equipment with some confusion. Does the ice giant planet prospecting plan have anything to do with the biological laboratory? Yongchang reached out and patted his head gently. Hey, I was so busy introducing you to the ice giant planet that I forgot to introduce you to the Human Body Enhancement Project. Human Enhancement Project? Hope and Hansen said in unison with shock in their eyes. Not bad. Yongchang opened another holographic projection again. Although the gravity of this ice giant planet is only 1.5 g, it is not even comparable to Dawnstar. However, for your safety, I recommend that you complete human enhancement first. As he spoke, Yongchang pulled up the comparative data before and after the human body was strengthened. Human body enhancement. Shortly after arriving at Dawnstar, the Academy of Sciences began related research. Recently, this technology has completely matured, and it is estimated that it will be promoted in the All People's Federation in a while. You have taken advantage of it and can experience it first. Looking at the extremely different data in the holographic projection, Hope's eyes showed emotion. After all, who doesn't want to have an incredibly strong body, especially when he saw that the enhanced humans could get rid of the constraints of exoskeleton armor and medical cabins and live freely on Dawnstar. He became even more excited. But the next moment, a deep worry flashed in his eyes. Professor, will this genetic modification, as old men from the Earth Age, Hope and Hansen have a heartfelt resistance to genetic modification technology? Yongchang was slightly startled, as if he thought of something. He smiled and waved his hand. Don't worry, I won't use you as guinea pigs. Human experiments were carried out 5 years ago, and the subjects were a group of prisoners who had committed crimes against humanity. After 5 years of observation, we can basically confirm that this technology does not cause any harm to the human body. Of course, for safety reasons, you need to complete germ cell sampling and storage before receiving reinforcement. After A day of deliberation. Hope and Hansen finally chose to undergo human enhancement experiments. The reason is also very simple. Point after all, they were going to explore inside the ice giant planet. Point the better their physical fitness, the higher their future survival rate. Point. Although this improvement is better than nothing, when the time comes, driven by the desire to survive, everyone will try their best to improve themselves. 3 days later, after completing various physical examinations, Hope and Hansen entered the cylindrical strengthening facility with trepidation under the gaze of everyone. Looking at the yellowish deep sea fluid rising from the soles of his feet and gradually covering his head, Hope took a deep breath of air. Feeling the cold feeling from his lungs, he slowly closed his eyes with a slight tingling sensation from his arm. His consciousness gradually became blurred. Prepare to inject the first dose of mana body strengthening hormone. Academician Mao Zheng's vague voice came into his ears through the glass cover. Start. Mana visceral momentum gene modification. Prepare to inject nutrient solution. Good luck. After finishing his work, Mao Zheng smiled and said to Yongchang, I thought no one would sign up for this project. LV. Yongchang nodded gently, with a look of emotion in his eyes. Pay more attention to the physical data of the two. Don't make any mistakes. No matter what the result of this operation is, they are all heroes of the human alliance. Mao Zheng nodded hurriedly and said seriously, Professor, don't worry, I will rest in the laboratory before they wake up. I guarantee that there will be no mistakes. LV. Yongchang silently stared at the tall body enhancement device. After a moment, he retracted his gaze and turned to walk towards the door of the laboratory. Report to me immediately after the enhancement is completed. I will go to see the ice giant exploration ship. Poseidon again. Chapter 464. Dawn Star Synchronous Orbit. An extremely large man-made object floats quietly in space. The man-made object is in the shape of a giant disk. It was a giant space city newly built by mankind. Under the light of Gliese 555. This huge disc-shaped man-made object is slowly rotating around the center of the circle. The same principle as the gravity chamber. This approach can provide the space within the disk with a gravity equivalent to that of the Earth. Not far from it, there is a half-built giant space city with the exact same shape and structure. The purpose of these space cities is not to dock starships or to build starships. Their main role is to nurture human newborns. The gravity on the surface of Dawn Star is too great, so it is not particularly friendly to children who have not yet fully developed. Even babies who have just been born and whose bones have not yet developed will have great difficulty standing and walking under such gravity. You can't put an exoskeleton armor on your newborn baby, right? In order to ensure the normal reproduction of human beings, the Academy of Sciences made preparations a few years ago to build several giant space cities in the synchronous orbit of the Dawn Star as nurturing centers. Once pregnant, both parents can travel to the giant space city at the same time and enjoy 20 years of pregnancy leave. Seems like a lot. But compared to the current lifespan of human beings, which can easily range from 8 to 900 or even 1000 years, this little time is nothing. When the newborn becomes an adult, parents and children can return to Dawn Star again to lead normal lives. Although this measure seems very humane, the time cost of 20 years and countless hidden costs still deter many people. Therefore, since the establishment of the giant space city, very few people have chosen to give birth to the next generation. And the huge space city also appears empty. On the outer edge of Dawn Star are equally huge buildings, that is the spaceport for the human fleet. As the core area for daily maintenance and manufacturing of starships, there are many fleets docked near the spaceport. The flagship, Earth, was docked there quietly. The core area of the spaceport. Researcher Li Yunshan, Dawn Star has sent a communication request. Do you accept it? Zeros. Electronic synthesized sound echoed in the huge room. Then, a male voice sounded, accept. The holographic projection unfolded, and Yongchang's image appeared in front of Li Yunshan. How is Poseidon doing? Yongchang asked directly without any nonsense. Li Yunshan, who was familiar with Yongchang's style, was not surprised at all, and quickly reported the latest progress to Yongchang. He first reached out and adjusted the angle of the camera so that it could capture Poseidon on the other side, and then spoke Professor Poseidon, has been completed and is currently undergoing performance testing. Through a huge glass, Yongchang could clearly see the true appearance of Poseidon as a specially made ice giant planet mineral exploration ship. Poseidon is extremely different from normal mineral exploration ships in shape point. In order to withstand the huge pressure and harsh environment inside the ice giant planet, Poseidon was designed into a standard sphere point. There are several large or small nozzles underneath the sphere. This is the tail of Poseidon, where the whole propulsion unit is placed. Above the sphere are several pieces of glass made of transparent aluminum. This is the porthole of Poseidon. In order to ensure the overall strength of Poseidon, the porthole glass was greatly thickened, and the area was reduced as much as possible. Each porthole allows only one person to look out. Behind the porthole is the cockpit of Poseidon, compared with the entire starship. The cockpit is extremely mini. The entire cockpit area is less than 50 square meters. After installing various instruments and equipment, there was only a dozen square meters of space left for the driver. The conditions are very difficult, but compared with the entire mineral exploration ship, the safety level of the cockpit is undoubtedly the highest. In a sense, the cockpit is even equivalent to a miniature starship. In the design, once the starship is irreversibly damaged, the cockpit will be ejected as a whole. With the help of the fuel and small hull propulsion device that comes with the cockpit, it can even rush into the low Earth orbit of an ice giant planet. Of course, that's all. It is unrealistic to want to use it to leave the ice giant planet and return to Dawnstar. As for the driver, the moment he encounters danger, he will enter the deep sea cabin in the cockpit. When the cockpit enters the low Earth orbit of the ice giant planet and sends out a distress signal, they will enter hibernation and wait for the rescue of the human fleet. This is the safest measure that Yongchang can think of. In addition to the cockpit and the hull thruster nozzle, there are two huge closed hatches on the rear side of the Poseidon. That's where the robots and warehouses are. Once potentially useful mineral resources are discovered under the control of the driver, the robot can perform sampling work and place the ore into the warehouse. In addition, there is a small laboratory inside Poseidon. It can perform the most basic testing on the mined ore samples, which can greatly improve the work efficiency of the prospecting ship. The two drivers will not make a trip in vain. Although there are so many structures inside, compared with the rest of the starships in the human fleet, Poseidon still looks particularly small. The entire starship is less than 100 meters in diameter. How is the compressive strength, LV? Yongchang asked in a deep voice. For Poseidon, compressive strength is the most important data point. Just reaching the surface of the liquid ammonia sea, the pressure around it has reached 60 standard atmospheres. Once it goes deep into the bottom of the liquid ammonia sea, the pressure will increase rapidly. The test results show that its maximum pressure resistance reaches 100,000 standard atmospheres. Yongchang glanced at the holographic projection on the side and answered quickly. Yongchang did not speak. With a thoughtful look in his eyes, 100,000 standard atmospheres, it can be said to be very high. In the Earth era, the deepest part of the Mariana Trench was only thousands of standard atmospheres. Even so, at that time, the Mariana Trench was still an abyss that humans could not conquer. But for the ice giant planet, this pressure resistance is still not enough. According to the model, the pressure inside the ice giant planet can even reach millions or even tens of millions of standard atmospheres. Carbon atoms will be compressed into small diamonds by this terrifying pressure, and countless diamond rain will even fall in the air. Of course, the Poseidon mineral exploration ship does not need to go to such a terrifying area. Theoretically, the pressure strength of 100,000 standard atmospheres is enough to support it to go to the depths of the liquid ammonia ocean. Chapter 465 Potential Population Crisis. Where is the probe? Yongchang pondered for a moment and asked again, have the results of the probe strength test come out? Yongchang and the holographic projection nodded quickly. As expected, the compressive strength of the probe has reached 1 million standard atmospheres. Although it cannot penetrate the deepest part of the ice giant planet, it can still bring us a lot of detection data. Hearing this, Yongchang nodded with satisfaction. Hope and Hansen have just started to receive human body enhancement transformation. You still have about half a month. Continue. To test proceeded. I don't want any mistakes to happen at that time, even if it's a screw-sized mistake. Looking at LV Yongchang's extremely serious expression, Li Yunshan quickly straightened his expression and nodded in response. After the communication was cut off, LV Yongchang turned his head to look at the faint red light emitted from the holographic projection on the side, and his eyes showed worry. After the human civilization of Proxima Centauri, the human fleet still encountered the same problem. The space city nurturing center has greatly reduced people's willingness to have children. This even affects the normal development of human civilization in the future. According to Zero's simulation calculation, at the current fertility rate, in 500 years, human civilization will usher in negative population growth for the first time. This is undoubtedly a catastrophe for an interstellar civilization. Should we implement a public support system? LV Yongchang muttered to himself worriedly. As a pilot, the human civilization of Proxima Centauri has been declared a failure. Will they definitely succeed? LV Yongchang was full of uneasiness. Although there was no communication with Proxima B, the latest developments of the human civilization of Proxima B were actually submitted to him every day. While helping the Proxima civilization, the social science academicians of the Academy of Sciences were also constantly collecting data and improving the reform model. According to the latest report of the social science academicians of the Academy of Sciences, the current situation of Proxima B is not optimistic. It can even be said to be a mess. The war destroyed several surface cities and several important urban supercomputing centers. The huge gap between natural persons and public support people caused major accidents in the scientific and technological data of Proxima B. Many data were scattered and stored in several urban supercomputing centers as several supercomputing centers were destroyed by the war. Proxima B lost a lot of scientific and technological data. Although the human fleet can help in this regard, but the current population of Proxima B is too small. A total population of 1 million is too small for interstellar civilization, so small that they can't normally inherit the original scientific and technological system. Even with the help of the Academy of Social Sciences and Zero, Proxima B can hardly recover from the last war. No matter from which angle, the human civilization of Proxima B at this time has embarked on the road of chronic death. That's why LV Yongchang is so entangled at this time. The role of the social public support system in promoting interstellar civilization is unquestionable. But the process of promoting its implementation contains extremely huge crises. 1 week later, Shuguang Star Biological Laboratory. Mao Zhengxi and LV Yongchang stood in front of two cylindrical containers more than 2 meters high, silently looking at the two people in the containers. There was a hint of expectation in LV Yongchang's eyes. Academician Mao, the enhancement should be completed, right? Hearing this, Mao Zhengxi quickly glanced at the data presented in the holographic projection and then nodded. Not bad. 7 doses of mana enhancement hormone have been injected. While speaking, Mao Zhengxi stretched out his hand and dragged the holographic projection in front of LV Yongchang. Professor, look, this is a picture sent back by the nanorocket. Some visceral membranes have appeared on the surface of Hope and Hansen's internal organs. It is estimated that in another week, the visceral membranes will be fully mature. This process does not consume much energy and does not require the help of the strengthening cabin and nutrient solution. LV Yongchang raised his eyebrows slightly. You mean, they can come out now? Mao Zhengxi nodded excitedly. Yes, the wake-up operation can be carried out at any time. LV Yongchang heard this and said without hesitation, in this case, wake them up. I think they should take some time to adapt to this new body. Ding, ding, ding. The faint buzzer sound came into Hope's ears. The tightly closed eyelids moved slightly, and then he quickly opened his eyes. What came into view was a pure white room. Where is this? Hope's eyes flashed with doubt. Isn't he undergoing human enhancement experiments in the biological laboratory's strengthening cabin? The unfamiliar environment made him panic a little. He subconsciously put his hands on both sides of his body, pushed hard, and tried to get up from the bed. Bang. A huge force came from behind. After a dizzy spell, Hope fell hard on the pure white floor. Fuck. He squeezed out 2 words from his teeth and then put his hands in front of his eyes and looked at them carefully. He clenched his fists in confusion, but there seemed to be no strange feeling. What happened just now? Suddenly, he seemed to realize something and tried to control his strength as much as possible. He stood up and jumped lightly. Feel a lot lighter. The heavy burden on his body completely dissipated at this moment. Even the long-term swelling in the abdominal cavity disappeared. Could it be that this is not Dawnstar? This thought flashed through his mind subconsciously. Hope, calm down. You are now in the observation room of the biological laboratory. A familiar voice sounded in the room. Professor Lu? The panic in Hope's eyes quickly dissipated. You have completed the human body enhancement experiment. Lu Yongchang's voice sounded again, interrupting Hope's words. Congratulations, you have become the first real new human. You can now easily adapt to the 1.9 g gravity on Dawnstar. You should be able to feel this very clearly. Hope's eyes showed some joy, and he nodded quickly. He hasn't felt this relaxed feeling for several years. Thanks to the increase in muscle strength, your strength will also be greatly improved. You should also be deeply aware of this. Lu Yongchang's voice was full of laughter. Hope looked at the bed behind him awkwardly. Indeed, he was deeply aware of it. In the next week, you will need to use high-intensity training to adapt to this new body. Warm tips: if you find that clicking the next page will force you to jump to other websites, please use the chapter error or contact us at the bottom to inform us. We will deal with it as soon as possible. Thank you for your understanding. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 466, Human Enhancement Pilot. These are the training items. Are there any questions? After listening to the various training programs given by Lu Yongchang, Hope finally had a chance to speak. He quickly asked the question that had been pressing in his mind for a long time. Professor, where is Hansen? How is he? No response. At this moment, Hope felt his heart skip a beat. No way, Professor. After waiting for a moment, Hope couldn't help but shouted again. Because of his nervousness, his tone changed slightly. Professor, how is Hansen? Isn't it said that the technology is mature and there is no risk? Still no response. Hope's eyes gradually dimmed. He lowered his head and looked at the ground in front of him silently. Regret, sadness, confusion, mixed emotions washed over him. Hello, can you hear me? Just as Hope was immersed in grief, Lu Yongchang's voice sounded again. I just confirmed. Hansen just woke up a minute ago, and like you, he also fell to the ground. Ha. Why do you have such a weird expression? Are you feeling unwell, Hope? Ahem. No, it's okay. Hope quickly twitched the corners of his mouth and showed an ugly smile. I haven't experienced such a relaxing feeling in a long time. Yes, I'm happy. Fearing that Lu Yongchang would misunderstand, Hope emphasized again and again. Lu Yongchang in the laboratory looked at the holographic image in front of him suspiciously. Is this thing worth being so happy about? He felt a vague swelling in his abdomen, and an idea came to his mind. How about find some free time and let him strengthen it too? If you have any unusual feelings, report it as soon as possible. After Lu Yongchang emphasized it hurriedly, he closed the holographic image in front of him and walked quickly in the direction of Mao Zengxi. After a few minutes, what, Professor? Please stop teasing me. Mao Zengxi's dumbfounded shout came from the laboratory. You'd better wait for a while before doing it. The number of samples is so small now, just in case you have 3 long and 2 short. Aren't you trying to kill me? Looking at Mao Zengxi, who refused to give in at all, Lu Yongchang smacked his lips with regret and gave up the idea in his mind. Another week later, Lu Yongchang, who was thinking about how to solve the population problem, received a communication request from the spaceport. The holographic projection slowly unfolded, revealing Li Yunshan's face. Professor Li Yunshan's voice came next. All test projects have been completed. Poseidon Ice Giant exploration ship is ready to go at any time. Dormitory area of the Academy of Sciences. Hope and Hansen, who had completed all training projects ahead of schedule, were lying in the dormitory to rest. Thinking of the upcoming journey, Hope felt a little restless. He has always had a special affection for the sea. In the age of the Earth, he lived by the sea and always had his heart set on the sea until a disaster happened and he changed his view of the sea. He came to hate and fear the ocean when he was on Proxima Centauri b, when he was eligible to go out on a mineral exploration mission. The temperature on Proxima Centauri b had dropped below freezing point. All the water was covered with thick ice. The ice has even continued to thicken over time. As time went by, the negative emotions in his heart gradually dissipated. The longing for the ocean once again arose in his heart. And when Ross was 154, he didn't see the real ocean at all. This regret has become more and more intense with the passage of time. Until I came to the Gliese 555 star system and saw the small ocean on the Dawn star. The long suppressed emotions in his heart finally burst out. It is precisely because of this that he spends all his rest time watching the sea. Now he is about to travel to the ice giant planet. There he will see an ocean covering the entire giant planet, boundless, bottomless. Thinking of such a scene, extremely complicated emotions arose in Hope's heart again. There is fear, there is also expectation, and more importantly, curiosity. He looked at the window aside. The theme of today's exterior simulation device was a seaside beach. Looking at the tiny waves lapping on the beach, Hope murmured softly, "Hansen, do you think we can succeed?" Unlike Hope, Hansen was addicted to surfing the internet at this time. While flipping through various entertainment news on the holographic projection, he said without raising his head, "Don't worry, you also know the data of Poseidon. If something unexpected happens like this, I don't think we need to resist fate." Hansen suddenly stopped swiping his fingers, and his gaze stopped at the top of the holographic screen. There is a latest news push. Judging from the logo attached to the news, this is news of the highest priority for the People's Federation. Hansen clicked on the news subconsciously. The latest news from the People's Academy of Sciences. From now on, a total of 12 human enhancement pilot sites will be set up in 6 surface cities. Looking at the accompanying video in the news, Hansen gradually opened his mouth. Aren't these Hansen and Hope? A surprised shout came from the residential area of city number 1. "Walter, what are you yelling about?" Another male voice sounded. "Are you listening to me? The Academy of Sciences just released the latest mineral exploration mission not long ago. When will we?" No, Zuyan, don't worry about the mineral exploration mission. Just take a look at this news first." Walter, who was sitting on the sofa, interrupted Zuyan's words and waved his hands repeatedly. "I seem to know where Hansen and Hope have been during this period, Uncle." Hope. Walter's words quickly attracted Zuyan's attention. He quickly stood up, walked quickly to Walter's side, and cast his eyes on the small holographic image in front of him. Human Body Enhancement Project. Enhancement. Pilot. Voluntary Principle. Zhu Yan was stunned by the words in the holographic screen. Has the Academy of Sciences come up with some black technology again? Don't look at the text, look at the video. Walter reminded hurriedly. Zhu Yan focused on the video that was halfway through. "Uncle Hope." He immediately recognized the figure in training. The next moment, he saw the various training data displayed on the screen. "This data doesn't seem very good. Look carefully. Your Uncle Hope, he doesn't have exoskeleton armor on him." Walter reminded softly. "This should be the human body enhancement project mentioned by the Academy of Sciences." Hiss. Zhu Yan, who noticed the key point, took a breath and then pointed to a line of text below the video. "According to the test data of the Academy of Sciences, the enhanced human body can perfectly adapt to the surface environment of Dawnstar and can get rid of the constraints of exoskeleton armor and medical cabins." Chapter 467. The first person to try something new. After the words fell, there was silence in the room. After the two looked at each other for a few seconds, Zhu Yan suddenly came back to his senses. His eyes flashed with excitement. "How about we try it too?" Similar to Zhu Yan, Walter at this time also rubbed his palms eagerly. "Try? Yes. Try it. I've had enough of this life. Look at this exoskeleton armor." As he spoke. Walter knocked hard on the exoskeleton armor fixed to his body, then pointed to the family medical cabin aside, and said somewhat incoherently, "And that medical cabin, you know, the people who sleep in it every night, is it painful?" "I know. Of course I know." Zhu Yan echoed. "Point. Since arriving on Dawnstar, everyone has endured an extremely uncomfortable life. Point. Every morning, they climb out of the wet medical cabin, clean the deep sea fluid from their bodies, and then put on their exoskeleton armor. Although the Academy of Sciences has tried its best to increase the comfort of wearing exoskeleton armor, this powerful iron frame still caused dissatisfaction among many people. In peacetime, no one wants to wear a semi-open armor forever. I'll sign up now." Zhu Yan hurriedly reached out and dragged the holographic image. To find the registration entrance point, the moment you press the button, the holographic image page jumps automatically. Instructions for human strengthening projects. After a few minutes, the atmosphere in the room stiffened. "How about we wait first?" Walter said in a low voice with hesitation in his eyes. "This thing seems to be tampering with genes." And looking at the visceral momentum simulation diagram and the holographic projection, Walter's face showed a trace of visible fear. "This human body enhancement project can actually change the original physical characteristics of humans." Walter was silent for a moment and then spoke again. "I remember that in the Earth Age, human genetic modification seemed to be a prohibited experimental project. As an older generation of the Earth era, Walter has an extremely strong resistance to genetic modification." Point. As for Zhu Yan, who was born in Proxima B, he frowned slightly and subconsciously asked, "Really? But this bill was repealed a few years ago." While talking, Zhu Yan found the corresponding evidence on his watch. "Look." He pointed at a piece of inconspicuous news. According to discussions between the Parliament and the Academy of Sciences, Walter did not speak, but silently looked at the holographic projection in front of him, his eyes full of struggle. He opened his mouth, but no complete words came out. After a long time, Walter breathed a long sigh of relief, as if he had figured something out. Point. His lips moved slightly and he whispered, I think, otherwise, let's forget it this time. Human enhancement technology has just been launched, and no one knows whether there will be any sequel. Just in case. What's more, I think compared with genetic modification, mechanical exoskeletons and medical cabins are actually acceptable." Zhu Yan shrugged and reached out to close the holographic image in front of him. "Okay, it's up to you. Let's wait and see what others choose." The next day. Academy of Sciences headquarters. Professor, Academician Mao Zengzi is here. Yongchang, who was sitting behind his desk, paused slightly, then stretched out his hand to pull the several holographic images in front of him to the side. "Let him in." After the words fell, the office door slowly opened. "Professor, something happened. Before anyone arrives, the sound comes first." Before the door was fully opened, Mao Zengzi's voice reached Lu Yongchang's ears. Lu Yongchang frowned slightly and stood up from his chair. "What? Something happened to the human enhancement project? There are too many applicants and not enough enhanced cabins." When Mao Zengzi, who had just entered the office, heard these words, his expression suddenly became strange. He shook his head awkwardly. "No, it's not. However, it does have something to do with registration." Lu Yongchang looked at Mao Zengzi in front of him with confusion, then turned to the robot aside and said, "Zero, how is the project registration status?" "As of now, there are 0 registrations." Zero's electronically synthesized sound came from the speaker, and at the same time, a holographic statistical map appeared in front of Lu Yongchang. Looking at the huge disparity in the numbers, Lu Yongchang twitched the corners of his mouth slightly and muttered to himself with a confused look, "How? So something went wrong with the promotional video?" Hearing Lu Yongchang's inquiry, Mao Zengzi sighed softly. "It's not us who have the problem. After the news was released, I sent someone to conduct a simple investigation. The investigation shows that all the old people from Earth have rejected this enhanced human body transformation." "What's the reason?" Lu Yongchang asked with a frown. "Genetic modification." Mao Zengzi squeezed out a few words through his teeth. "They have a heartfelt fear of genetic modification of the human body. Yongchang fell into silence. Even he did not consider this situation. He stretched out his hand and pinched his eyebrows and said a little tiredly, "What about the new generation? Why didn't the new generation born on Proxima b sign up under the influence of the older generation? They all chose to wait and see." Mao Zedong pulled the corner of his mouth and said with a smile, "Simply put, they are all waiting for others to be the so-called experimental subjects, and there is worse news, because no one has signed up. People's trust in the project has begun to decline sharply. If it drags on, I'm afraid, LV." Yongchang didn't say anything, but just silently looked at the statistical charts in the holographic projection. In this case, it is not difficult to understand the reason behind it. Everyone has a fear of unfamiliar things, but as long as someone tries and becomes the first person to eat crabs, then naturally someone will choose to follow. But today's human enhancement project is stuck at the very beginning, except for Hope and Hansant. No one is willing to be the first person to eat crabs. LV Yongchang pondered for a moment, then slowly raised his head and looked at Mao Zedong in front of him. "Get ready. I'll be the first volunteer." Mao Zedong suddenly widened his eyes and looked at LV Yongchang behind the desk with horror. "No, Professor, this won't work." He waved his hands repeatedly and dissuaded incoherently. This is too dangerous, and nothing is wrong." LV Yongchang interrupted Mao Zedong. "Except for me, all the staff of the Academy of Sciences will give priority to the Human Enhancement Project. I will also tell Chairman Han at the Parliament, since no one is willing to be the first test product, let us be the first one." Chapter 468. Outstanding effect. LV Yongchang's decision caused a stir not only in the Academy of Sciences, but also in the 6 surface cities of Dawnstar. But it must be said that the publicity effect of such an approach is extremely significant. 10 minutes after the announcement of the news, the Human Enhancement Pilot Area located in the north of City Number 1 welcomed the first guest. Zhu Yan stood on the street, raised his wrist, and carefully checked the navigation in his watch. Then he looked at the building in front of him. The first pilot of human enhancement of the Human Union. Looking at the Chinese characters above the building, Zhu Yan took a deep breath, and then his consciousness moved slightly, and the exoskeleton armor quickly read the brain waves he emitted. A force came from the exoskeleton armor on his legs, pushing him forward. But the next moment, he stopped. Zhu Yan raised his wrist again, and the holographic image automatically unfolded. The moment he saw the picture, Zhu Yan's face changed slightly, and he quickly took a few steps to the side. Then he looked back and confirmed that he could not see the building. Then he reached out and clicked the button in the holographic projection. "Zhu Yan, where have you been?" A familiar voice came from the headset. Zhu Yan looked calm and shrugged his shoulders in a relaxed manner. "Walter, what's the matter?" In the holographic projection, Walter looked at the scene around Zhu Yan with a suspicious look. "Why did you go to the street for no reason?" The next second, Walter's face changed slightly, and he asked in a deep voice, "You won't sign up for the Human Body Enhancement Project, right?" Zhu Yan's heart skipped a beat, but his face did not show any abnormality. He laughed and said, "What a joke. You said that. How could I sign up? I just came out for a walk and will be back in a while." Walter nodded doubtfully. "You better I tell you, this genetic modification is not that simple." What if, seeing that Walter was about to repeat his ancient experience again, Zhu Yan hurriedly interrupted his casting. Stop. I understand all this. I promise I'll be back right away." Before Walter could continue speaking, Zhu Yan cut off the communication point. After turning off the holographic projection, he turned around and slowly walked towards the building marked the first pilot of human enhancement, name, Zhu Yan, ID. After a series of complicated verification procedures, Zhu Yan followed the staff and walked into the building. Looking at the cylindrical containers more than 2 meters high around him, Zhu Yan felt his heart jump suddenly. This scene, why do I feel like I've seen it in a movie? Before he could think about it, the staff took him to the cylindrical container, marked with the number 1. Come on, go in, relax, just like entering the medical cabin. In about a week, you will be able to get rid of these complicated constraints. After entering the enhanced cabin, Zhu Yan slowly closed his eyes under the effect of the drug. A week later, Yongchang slowly woke up on the hospital bed. After a brief moment of confusion, countless memories came to his mind. A week ago, in order to eliminate people's unnecessary concerns about the human body enhancement project, he and some scientific researchers took the lead. In entering the enhancement cabin, he raised his hand and gently clenched his fist. Feeling an unprecedented sense of power and ease, Yongchang showed a faint smile at the corner of his mouth. "Yongchang, you're awake, Su." Yutong's voice came from the door of the ward. Yongchang nodded gently and sat up carefully. The embarrassing appearance of Hope and Hansen, who overexerted themselves, was still vivid in his mind. Even so, Yongchang's movements still seemed extremely uncoordinated. Be careful. Su Yutong naturally reached out to support Yongchang's shoulders and helped him up from the bed. "You have just completed the enhancement and you still need some time to adapt, academician. Mao said that you will be able to walk normally in about a day." Looking at Su Yutong's serious profile, Yongchang chuckled, relaxed his body, and let her support him to the chair beside him. "How is the effect?" Yongchang, who was sitting on the chair, pondered for a moment and asked in a low voice, "Has the number of applicants increased?" "Yes, Su." Yutong's eyes lit up slightly, and she said excitedly, "At present, many people have chosen to participate in the human body enhancement project. It's a pity." The look on her face dimmed instantly. "So far, all the participants in the project are the new generation from Proxima B. LV. Yongchang didn't care much and waved his hand gently, saying, "No hurry. After this batch of new generations completes the enhancement, someone will naturally follow. As a person who experienced the enhancement project, Yongchang naturally knew how attractive this refreshing and relaxed feeling is to today's human beings." "Oh, right." Su Yutong seemed to remember something, turned around and opened a holographic image. "The Poseidon exploration ship will set off today. Departure time, about 20 minutes later. LV. Yongchang stretched out his hands to support the armrests on both sides of the seat and slowly stood up. "I will go to command." As he said, he slowly stepped forward. "Wait. Academician Mao said that you can't." Looking at Yongchang's movements, Su Yutong stood up anxiously and stretched out his hand to try to support Yongchang's body. However, the imagined scene did not appear. Yongchang did not fall to the ground. After a brief shake, he quickly stabilized his body. After taking a few steps in a row, Yongchang's somewhat awkward movements had completely returned to normal. "Let's go." He walked to the door and turned his head to Su Yutong, who was stunned behind him, and raised his hand to signal. "Don't you have to support me, Su?" Yutong, feeling a little softness coming from his side, Yongchang's mouth corners slightly raised. Perhaps because of the strengthening of the brain by the technology tree system, his adaptation time was greatly shortened. Even so, under his insistence, Su Yutong still helped him out of the ward. "What if I lose balance and fall again?" In order to make this sentence more convincing, Yongchang even accidentally tilted his body. Seeing this, Su Yutong had no choice but to endure the slight shyness in her heart and carefully supported Yongchang to the command center. On the way, they naturally met many familiar faces. Looking at this scene, almost everyone showed a similar smile on their faces. This kind of smile, in the ancient Earth era, has a unique name. Anti-smile. Chapter 469. Start the landing procedure. Dawn Star City number 1, dock number 3. The spherical Poseidon exploration ship parked quietly at its own location, waiting for orders from the Academy of Sciences. There are two small windows at the front of the exploration ship. Through the window, two figures can be vaguely seen. Hope and Hansen. A large number of precision instruments and equipment were installed in the small cockpit, so there was not much room for the two of them to move around. At this time, as they were about to take off, the two of them looked solemn and sat silently on their chairs, staring at the small window in front of them. Outside the window is the familiar port of city number 1. Perhaps because the two were about to set off to an unknown area that humans had never set foot in, the atmosphere in the cockpit was extremely serious. Hope subconsciously tugged on her collar, and took a deep breath to relieve some of the pressure in her heart point, but it was obvious from his expression that the pressure in his heart had not diminished much. Hope Hansen's voice broke the dead silence of the cockpit. Hope's Adam's apple moved slightly and responded in a hoarse voice. What, do you regret it? Hope looked slightly suffocated, but then shook his head without hesitation. I don't regret it. At least, now I'm a member of the People's Academy of Sciences. Hansen chuckled and said nothing. What about you? After a moment of silence, Hope asked. Me. Hansen whispered softly in a low voice. Do you want to hear the truth or a lie? Hope didn't speak, just turned his head and looked at Hansen beside him quietly. To be honest, I did regret it when I sat in this cockpit. Hansen took a deep breath. However, thinking that I may be the first human to land on an ice giant in history, I want to drive. When I come back, I can loudly tell that old boy Walter that labor and management is someone who has been in the ice stars. Want to know what's inside the ice giant? As he spoke, Hansen laughed and made an exaggerated expression. I can even imagine the expression on that conservative boy's face. Hope imagined the scene at that time in his mind and couldn't help laughing. The original solemn atmosphere in the cockpit dissipated a lot at this moment. Speaking of which, Hope looked a little more relaxed. Do you think Professor Liu will come to conduct this time? Hansen was silent for a moment, then shook his head helplessly. Probably not, after all that happened. Hope sighed with regret. What a pity. Although the process of taking off was not difficult, Hope always felt a little uneasy without hearing Yongchang's voice. What's such a pity? Hansen shrugged and reached out to adjust the seat. According to the time, Professor Liu should have just completed the human body enhancement by now. When we arrive at our destination. Hello, Poseidon, can you hear me? Before Hansen finished speaking, a familiar voice came from the radio channel. Hope's demise suddenly lit up. Professor Liu, why are you here? What? Yongchang seemed to be in a good mood and responded with a smile. Can't I come? No. What I mean is. Hope's face turned slightly red, and he explained continuously. Didn't you just complete the enhancement project? Does this conflict with my command? Yongchang asked with a smile. No. Hope couldn't help but doubt life, and murmured with a confused look on his face. In the impression, it was difficult for him to even walk when he first woke up. Right. Why did everything change when Professor Liu came here? Okay, no more nonsense. Enter the deep sea chamber. Yongchang did not stay on this topic for too long. He clapped his hands and said energetically, get ready to go. Start mankind's first in-depth exploration of the ice giant. Call the command center. This is Poseidon. We have successfully entered the synchronous orbit. The exploration vessel is in good condition and the driver is in good condition. The route has been set, preparing to enter hibernation in order to save supplies as much as possible after entering the Dawn Star synchronous orbit. Hope and Hansen entered a state of hibernation. Beyond the Dawn Star, a small starship with a spherical shape drew a beautiful arc and accelerated towards the target planet with the help of the gravitational slingshot effect of the Dawn Star. The Gliese 555 star system is not large, so the distance between the two planets is not far, driven by the latest Hall thruster. The distance between Poseidon and the ice giant is rapidly shortened. In just a few days, Poseidon arrived near its destination. Lines of faint text flashed across the holographic projection above the console. About to arrive at the preset location. Deceleration completed. Successful entry into orbit. Wake up the driver. In the cockpit, the two deep sea cabin work indicator lights came on quickly. The yellowish deep sea liquid inside rapidly decreases. The hatch opens. Hope's eyes shot open. Ahem. He coughed hard while getting out of the deep sea cabin. Because he had just come out of hibernation, his body was still a little stiff. He first glanced at the hibernation cabin beside him, and when he saw Hansen had opened his eyes, he put on his electromagnetic boots with confidence and walked to the driver's seat with a staggering step. Click. A crisp sound rang out, and the electromagnetic absorption device on the seat took effect. Point. He coughed and pressed several buttons on the holographic projection point. When he saw the indicator light on the side, Hope injured the discomfort from his lungs and reported loudly, calling the command center. Cough. This is the Poseidon exploration ship. Please reply. Cough. We have arrived at the destination. Repeat. We have arrived at the destination. I have left the cabin and feel good. Click. Beside him, the sound of the electromagnetic absorption device came. Ahem. Is this the ice giant? Hansen coughed and raised his head, looking at the blue planet in front of him from the small porthole in front of him. It's really spectacular looking. At the slowly moving reddish-brown ribbon on the surface of the ice giant, Hansen expressed his feelings. Spectacular. Hope shrugged. I hope you can say the same when we go in. Before Hansen could speak, the working indicator light of the long-distance communication device lit up. This is the command center. Prepare to start the landing procedure. LV. Yongchang's gentle voice came from the loudspeaker. Be safe, both of you. Chapter 470. Crossing the ammonia ice clouds. Hope took a deep breath, lowered his head to check the seat belts on himself and Hansen, and reached out to press the button on the holographic projection. The landing program has been initiated. Decelerating. Expected to start contacting the upper atmosphere in 10 minutes. A bright red countdown appeared in the holographic projection directly in front of the 2-point. Hope and Hansen did not pay too much attention to the various sensor data jumping on the holographic projection point in the absence of sudden unexpected situations. Yi was enough to control Poseidon to complete this landing operation. Point. Moreover, as a key project of the Academy of Sciences, Zero also allocated a lot of resources to Poseidon. Therefore, the two of them cast their eyes to the portal in front of them. Point. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to observe the ice giant up close. As the speed of Poseidon gradually decreased, the distance between the exploration ship and the ice giant was getting closer and closer under the gravitational pull of the ice giant. Point. The overwhelming blue reflected in the eyes of the two pilots through the narrow porthole, and the suffocating huge sense of oppression came over them. Compared with the giant planet, the small mineral exploration ship is like an inconspicuous dust. Point. This dust, under the influence of gravity, unswervingly fell into the ice giant planet. Point. Blue. Endless blue. Point. Without any reference, Hope and Hansen could not even perceive their own status. Only the numbers that kept jumping in the holographic projection reminded them that they were falling rapidly. Point. Outside the porthole, a layer of light white fog gradually appeared. Point. The fog was very light and almost invisible without careful observation. Point. Hope glanced at the holographic projection. Point. 0.01 standard atmospheric pressure. We have entered the atmosphere of the ice giant. Hope reminded his teammates in a low voice. Point. Hansen did not speak, but just looked at the porthole silently. Point. Like Hansen, every researcher in the Dawnstar Surface Command Center will stare at the pressure image data sent back by the long-distance communication device. Ammonia ice cloud. Looking at the gradually thick white fog in the holographic image, Yongchang said in a deep voice. Point. It is exactly the same as the data sent back by the detector. The upper atmosphere of this ice giant planet is filled with clouds formed by solid ammonia crystals. The white clouds move very fast, indicating that an extremely strong storm is happening outside. Attention, LV. Yongchang looked at the data sent back by the sensor and said in a serious tone, the wind speed outside has reached 593 km/h at this time. Be prepared for impact. As soon as the voice fell, Hope had no time to reply, and he felt a violent tremor coming from all around. Point. He hurriedly glanced at the holographic projection. Point. 0.5 standard atmospheric pressure. Point. 0.6 standard atmospheric pressure. Point. 0.7. 0.8. As the atmospheric pressure continued to increase, the shaking of the ship became more and more violent. Point. The several hole thruster nozzles set up around the ship played a role at this moment. Point. With the energy support provided by the nuclear fusion reactor, they maintained the stability of the ship as much as possible. Point. Outside the porthole, it was no longer an endless blue. Point. Instead, there was a fast-moving white cloud at this time. The exploration ship had fallen into the dense ammonia ice cloud. As the altitude continued to decrease, the outside atmospheric pressure continued to increase. But the wind speed outside was slowly decreasing. For the Poseidon exploration ship, this was undoubtedly excellent news. The world outside the porthole was getting darker and darker, and the thick ammonia ice cloud blocked the light from the main star. Hansen, turn on all the searchlights, Hope shouted loudly, resisting the dizziness caused by the violent trembling. Hansen nodded with difficulty, and with a sullen face, he reached out and pressed the button on his side. The extremely strong light came out from the ship, illuminating the surrounding atmosphere. It was still a dense white cloud. After falling for several minutes, they still did not get out of this thick ammonia ice cloud. Crack. It was a huge lightning that penetrated the entire cloud. The huge lightning spread rapidly to the end of the sight like a thunder dragon, dispelling the endless darkness in the distance. Hope breathed rapidly, his pupils slightly dilated, and stared at the spectacular scene outside the porthole. The thick ammonia ice clouds formed a series of towering peaks. Under the super strong hurricane, these peaks surged rapidly and changed their own shapes. He could even imagine that between these extremely huge peaks, the exploration ship was like a grain of dust emitting faint light, constantly falling down. Fuck, Hope muttered to himself. At this moment, there were no words in his mind to describe the strong shock in his heart. It's worth it. This trip is worth it. This scene alone made him feel that he had no regrets in his life. The surging clouds kept rubbing against each other, releasing one lightning after another. Warning, lightning strike. Warning, zeros. Electronic synthesized voice suddenly sounded in the exploration ship. Fuck. Hope and Hansen's faces changed drastically, and they shouted in unison, calm down. Yongchang's voice came from the loudspeaker. Theoretically, the magnetic field shield equipped on the exploration ship can withstand these lightning. Theoretically, looking at the rapidly approaching golden electric light, Hansen felt his scalp tingling. Zero's electronic synthesized voice interrupted Hansen's words. The magnetic field shield is being activated. The magnetic field shield has been activated. A silver snake spread from the end of the sight and slashed directly at the exploration ship. The golden electric light instantly engulfed the Poseidon exploration ship. The whole propulsion device is restarting. The shield generation unit is recharging again. Zero's voice sounded in the dark cockpit, and the lighting device started working again, quickly dispelling the surrounding darkness. Fuck, brother, we survived. Hansen swallowed hard and said in a trembling voice, it's really exciting. When I go back, I must show off to them. Hope. Hansen frowned without hearing a response, and turned his head to look in Hope's direction. Don't you think it's exciting? Hope stared straight at the narrow porthole in front of him. Exciting? Hope muttered to himself. I hope you can be so stubborn later. Hansen followed Hope's gaze, seeing a golden lightning snake with an invincible momentum sweeping him from a distance. Hansen, is it over? Hansen's trembling voice came from the side. Brother, are you still alive? Hope checked the damage to the hull of the exploration ship and said faintly, is it exciting? Hansen, not exciting. Not exciting. I don't want to experience it again in my life. Hope breathed a sigh of relief after completing the inspection and glanced at Hansen with a strange look. There are two pieces of news. The good news is that Professor Liu is still reliable, and the exploration ship has basically not suffered any damage. Hansen swallowed slightly. What about the bad news? I'm afraid your wish will be unfulfilled. Hope shrugged and said in a teasing tone, if nothing unexpected happens, we will have to experience such a scene again when we go back. Hansen. Chapter 471. Entering the sea. Faced with his teammates cheesing, Hansen gave a wry smile, cast his eyes outside the porthole, and changed the subject somewhat stiffly. By the way, where are we now? Hope frowned and looked at the porthole in front of him. Poseidon high-power searchlights were installed around the hull, but even so, except for the area around the hull, the distance was still pitch black. The weak light of the searchlight obviously could not dispel the endless darkness inside the ice giant. I don't know either. He shook his head, and a look of hesitation flashed in his eyes. It seems that the clouds outside seem to be much thicker. As he spoke, he turned his head and glanced at the various data presented in the holographic projection. 30 standard atmospheres. You should be at the junction of the ammonia ice cloud and the liquid ammonia ocean now. The voice of LV Yongchang suddenly came from the long-distance communication device point after the exploration ship was out of danger. LV Yongchang obviously breathed a sigh of relief, and his tone of voice also seemed a lot more relaxed. Border? Hope frowned. But, it seems that we are still in the cloud. He stretched out his hand and swiped a few times on the holographic screen point looking at the white cloud in the camera. Hope said again. Moreover, the camera at the bottom of the exploration ship did not capture the so-called liquid ammonia ocean. This is a normal phenomenon. Lu Yongchang's voice sounded again, unlike terrestrial planets. From the data sent back by the probe and the model we built, there is no obvious dividing line between the atmosphere and the ocean of the ice giant. As the surrounding pressure and temperature increase, the tiny ammonia crystals in the atmosphere of the ice giant will gradually liquefy and become mist-like droplets floating in the atmosphere. From your perspective, the clouds outside should be denser. Hope suddenly realized and nodded repeatedly. Then how long will it take us to reach the liquid ammonia ocean? LV Yongchang pondered for a moment. From the simulation calculation results of 0, when the outside air pressure reaches 60 standard atmospheres, you will really come into contact with the liquid ammonia ocean. Hope glanced at the data sent back by the sensor. 40 standard atmospheres not far from the 60 standard atmospheres mentioned by Professor Lu. He sat up subconsciously, with a little trepidation in his eyes. The boundless liquid ammonia ocean. Even if he just imagined this picture in his mind, Hope felt an extremely complicated feeling rising in his heart. There was some expectation and some fear. The exploration ship continued to fall. Driven by the Hall thrusters, the exploration ship's descent speed was very slow at this time. And Hope and Hansen also truly felt the gravity from this ice giant. The gravity of 1.5 g is not even as strong as that of Dawn. This gravity did not bring any adverse effects to the bodies of the two who had just strengthened. As time went on, the surrounding pressure gradually increased. 55 standard atmospheres, 58 standard atmospheres, 59 standard atmospheres. The exploration ship's descent speed was also getting slower and slower. Hovering successfully. Landing environment analysis in progress. Poseidon quietly stopped in the atmosphere of the ice giant, and at the same time, a series of precise sensors began to explore below. Professor, it seems to be raining outside. Hope glanced at the porthole in front of him and said with some surprise. The bean-sized raindrops hit the surface of the exploration ship, making a crisp and pleasant sound. It should be liquid ammonia rain. LV Yongchang looked at the picture sent back by the camera and said softly, if nothing unexpected happens, you are not far from the liquid ammonia ocean. A large amount of liquid is detected under the exploration ship. Sure enough, the next moment, Zero's electronic synthesized sound sounded in the command center in the cockpit at the same time. LV Yongchang's face was lifted, and there was a bit of joy in his eyes. It is indeed a liquid ammonia ocean. In this way, he is more confident about discovering new minerals. LV Yongchang suppressed his excitement and said in a deep voice, you too, the next is our highlight. Pay attention to safety. Then he directly gave the order, switch the drive mode, and prepare for landing. As soon as the words fell, LV Yongchang noticed the logical problem in his order. There is no land on the ice giant, so how can there be a landing? So, he quickly added, no, prepare to enter the sea. Hope chuckled, and the originally solemn atmosphere in the cockpit dissipated a lot at this moment. Got it? He raised his hand and pressed a few buttons on the holographic projection point in order to better perform mineral exploration tasks in the liquid ammonia ocean. 2 drive modes are installed in the Poseidon exploration ship. The first one is naturally the traditional drive mode using the Hall thruster device. The second one is the more traditional propeller propulsion. After Hope pressed the button, the light of the main Hall thruster at the tail of Poseidon slowly went out, and the entire spacecraft barely maintained a hovering state under the push of several auxiliary Hall thrusters on the side. Then, the main thruster retracted to the belly of the cabin, and a propeller of about the same size as the main thruster stretched out synchronously to replace it. The drive mode has been switched. Prepare to enter the sea. The height kept decreasing and the distance between the exploration ship and the sea surface was getting closer and closer. The images sent back by the camera gradually became clearer. The endless deep sea surface came into the eyes of the two. The sea surface was pitch black, like a bottomless abyss, absorbing all the light from the outside world. Under the illumination of the high-power searchlight, the sea surface was surging, and even the smallest waves reached several meters in height. Looking at the picture in the holographic projection, Hansen's hand controlling the exploration ship trembled slightly, and even Poseidon shook a little. He swallowed slightly, his pupils dilated slightly, and stared straight at the picture sent back by the camera. Hope, do you still have expectations for this liquid ammonia ocean now? Hope, who was sitting on the other side, shook his head with fear in his imagination. The liquid ammonia ocean on the ice giant should be a blue, boundless, and vast ocean, and it should be the kind of beautiful scenery that can make people feel peaceful and peaceful at a glance. But since he entered the ice giant, he realized the problem. At this moment, he was like Yi Gong in Yi Gong's love for dragons facing the deep and dark sea. There was only endless fear in his heart. As for the previous expectations, he threw them all behind his head. The scene in front of him made him deeply aware of the cruelty of nature, or the universe. The current human beings are as ridiculous as toys in front of it. Hansen took a deep breath and controlled the exploration ship to slowly descend again. Hope, get ready, we are going into the sea. Chapter 472 Abnormal Situation. Poseidon, the auxiliary propulsion device on the side, stalled. Under the influence of gravity, it begins to fall freely. It spanned a distance of more than 10 meters and slammed into the dark and deep ocean of liquid ammonia. After a violent shaking, the cockpit returned to stability. Hansen quickly checked the holographic projection in front of him. After there were no problems with the ship, he breathed a sigh of relief and said slightly excitedly, Poseidon called the command center. I have successfully entered the sea. As for Hope on the side, he also recovered from the impact at this moment. He skillfully operated the holographic image on the console. The power system is starting. Startup successful. The moment he finished speaking, a slight recoil came from the seat. The propeller at the tail of Poseidon began to accelerate gradually, driven by electric energy. It stirs the liquid ammonia seawater and pushes the exploration ship forward. But, from the long-distance communication device, Yongchang's energetic shout came, and at the same time, a faint cheer could be heard. As you can imagine, there was a scene of cheering in the Dawnstar command center at this time. The corners of Hope's mouth raised slightly, and the fear in his heart was dispelled by the cheers. Prepare to dive. Yongchang immediately issued the order. Always pay attention to pressure changes. Once an abnormal situation occurs, surface immediately. Half an hour later, the sensors are continuously transmitting data back to Dawnstar through long-distance communication devices. The scientific researchers on Dawnstar also quickly analyzed various data from Poseidon. As for Yongchang, as the chief scientist, needless to say, at this time, he was completely busy. Therefore, after half an hour of dry chatting, the cockpit of Poseidon was completely silent, with only the propeller stirring liquid ammonia and the slight noise of various instruments working. It was pitch black outside the porthole window. High power searchlights are also somewhat inadequate for such an area. Hope, Hansen's voice suddenly sounded. Where are we now? Hope raised his hand and moved it on the holographic projection. Altitude, minus 10.13 kilometers, based on liquid ammonia sea level. Pressure, 97,230 kPa. PS. The density of liquid ammonia is 3. The acceleration of gravity is 1.5 g. The pressure at 1 meter depth is about 9 kPa. The pressure at 1 standard atmosphere is 101 kPa. The absolute pressure is roughly 91,170 kPa. Plus the surface pressure near the sea surface is 60 standard atmospheres, 60 kPa. Comprehensive calculated. The pressure at this time is approximately 962 standard atmosphere, pps. Just a rough calculation. Looking at the numbers in the holographic projection, Hansen swallowed slightly and muttered to himself. It's already 10,000 meters. How long until we reach our destination? As he spoke, He moved his body uncomfortably. The ergonomic chair was comfortable, but he still felt uncomfortable. This discomfort is not due to gravity or other external factors, but purely psychological reasons outside the porthole. It was pitch black. The two of them kept sinking in the small space. The psychological pressure this brings is extremely huge. If they hadn't both been starship pilots, they would have been on the verge of collapse by now. It's still early. Faced with Hansen's words, Hope slowly shook his head and said in a low voice, "Currently there is only 962 standard atmospheric pressure, and it is still early to reach the target area. The pressure limit of this exploration ship is 100,000 standard atmospheres. A conservative estimate. We have to go below 1,000 kilometers to take a look." Hansen subconsciously held his breath. 1,000 kilometers below the sea surface. This terrifying number made his heart tremble suddenly. Dawn Star Lu Yongchang frowned as he looked at a piece of data sent back by the detector. "What the hell is this?" he muttered. After thinking for a moment, he turned to look at the holographic image on one side. The hologram plays the footage from the external camera. Looking at the somewhat turbid liquid ammonia seawater in the picture, Lu Yongchang frowned. A bad premonition arose in his heart. 0. Where is Poseidon? The holographic image changes rapidly. Current depth -2. Current pressure 23,344 standard atmospheres. Let them stop. Lu Yongchang thought for a moment and said bluntly, "Keep hovering at this position. There is something wrong with the data returned by the sensor." After a few minutes, video communication is connected. "Professor, what happened?" In the holographic projection, Hope and Hansen's mental state was significantly better than at the beginning. As for the reason, Lu Yongchang looked at the pile of playing cards next to the two of them, and the corners of his mouth twitched slightly. "How about you two put your vacation on hold?" Perhaps sensing Lu Yongchang's gaze, Hope quietly moved his right hand and moved the playing cards aside. As for Hansen, he pointed to the playing cards with an embarrassed look on his face. "Teach. Professor, if I said we just started playing this, would you believe it?" Lu Yongchang, he waved his hand helplessly. "Forget it. Put this thing away first. Something went wrong. Going to the depths of the ice giant to perform exploration missions. The psychological pressure on the drivers is extremely huge." LV Yongchang, who knows this well, will naturally not scold the two drivers for such a small matter. Hearing this, Hope and Hansen's expression suddenly became serious. The two looked at each other and quickly picked up the poker cards scattered on the ground. After a few dozen seconds, "Professor, you say?" Hope sat in the driver's seat with a solemn expression and said in a deep voice. LV Yongchang was silent for a moment, organized his words and slowly said, "I found some abnormal conditions in the data sent back by the sensor. You can look at the liquid ammonia seawater around. Compared with the beginning, it is obviously much more turbid." Hope was stunned for a moment and then cast his eyes to the porthole. After a careful observation, he looked at Hansen beside him suspiciously. "Is there?" Hansen also shook his head in confusion. "Professor, are you sure?" LV Yongchang frowned and then operated on the holographic projection beside him. "You have been in the liquid ammonia ocean, so you may not notice it, but if we take pictures of liquid ammonia seawater at different depths and observe." The next moment, 5 pictures appeared in the holographic projection in front of Hope and Hansen. These are pictures of the seawater taken by cameras every 50 kilometers. You can compare them. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 473, Amide. This, when Hope saw the picture in the holographic projection, his face changed slightly. As LV Yongchang said, as the diving depth increased, the seawater in the liquid ammonia ocean gradually became turbid. "Could there be any impurities?" Hansen, on the side, asked in a low voice. "For example, the mineral resources we are looking for." Hearing this, Hope's eyes lit up slightly, and he was about to say something, but saw LV Yongchang slowly shook his head. "Not sure." LV Yongchang had some doubts in his eyes, shook his head gently, and whispered, only by sampling and testing the seawater can we know what these substances are. Prepare for sampling before a clear conclusion is reached. Suspend the diving exploration mission. As soon as the voice fell, the video communication was cut off. Hope and Hansen looked at each other. Afterwards, Hope shrugged helplessly. Well, it seems that this exploration mission will last much longer than we thought. Facing the sigh of his teammates, Hansen also sighed helplessly. Yeah, I was thinking about finishing the exploration and returning to Dawnstar as soon as possible. Although they said so, the movements of their hands did not slow down at all. -2. A small spherical exploration ship quietly floated in the dark and deep liquid ammonia ocean. The searchlight on the exploration ship slightly illuminated the surrounding seawater from a distance. The Poseidon exploration ship with the searchlight running at full power was like a conspicuous lighthouse in the endless darkness, announcing its existence to the surroundings. The next second, the side hatch of the exploration ship, which was originally stationary in the liquid ammonia seawater, slowly opened. A mechanical arm slowly stretched out from it. After the mechanical arm swept around the exploration ship, it quickly retracted into the cabin. Dawnstar, Professor, the liquid ammonia seawater sampling has been completed. Hope's voice came from the long-distance communication device. All samples are in the pressurized cabin. The reason why the samples are placed in the pressurized cabin is naturally to prevent the liquid ammonia seawater from vaporizing. LV Yongchang turned his head to check the images in the pressurized cabin, nodded, and said with satisfaction, "Thank you for your hard work. Take a break. I will notify you when the test results come out." The work of testing the samples does not need to be completed by the two drivers, let alone whether humans can withstand the environment in the pressurized cabin. The various sophisticated and complex testing instruments alone are not something that the two drivers who were born as mineral prospectors can operate. 0. Test the samples. LV Yongchang gave the order directly to 0. Looking at the test data in front of him, LV Yongchang frowned and took a breath of cool air. In front of him is a brand new substance. But if it is said to be a mineral resource, LV Yongchang does not believe it. The reason is very simple. From the current data, this thing is more like an organic matter, or in other words, like a polypeptide chain or protein. An incredible thought flashed through LV Yongchang's mind. Could it be there is life in the liquid ammonia ocean of the ice giant? The next second, he shook his head, and through the thought that flashed through his mind behind him. What a joke, let alone the possibility of life in liquid ammonia. The environment around the exploration ship at this moment is like hell for normal creatures, because the possibility of life in the ice giant has never been considered. There is no scientific researcher specializing in biology among all the people present. So, to be on the safe side, LV Yongchang pondered for a moment and said, 0. Let Mao Zengzi come over. More than 10 minutes later, Academician Mao Zengzi hurried to the door of the command center. Looking at the busy scene in the command center, Mao Zengzi's eyes flashed with a trace of doubt. If he remembered correctly, wasn't this the command of the mineral exploration mission of the ice giant? Why did Professor Lu call him over? With a full heart of doubts, he stepped into the door of the command center. Mao Zengzi, who had just entered the door, saw LV Yongchang standing in front of a holographic projection with a frown on his brows, as if he had encountered some problems. Mao Zengzi was slightly startled. He seemed to have not seen LV Yongchang in this state for a long time. He immediately straightened his expression and walked forward. "Professor," he called in a low voice after approaching. "Ah, you here? Come and see." LV Yongchang did not turn his head, still staring at the holographic projection in front of him. Mao Zengzi's eyes were even more puzzled. But seeing LV Yongchang's appearance, he could not ask more questions, so he could only quickly get close to LV Yongchang. When he saw the various data in the holographic projection, like LV Yongchang, his brows also frowned tightly. Is this protein as the top biological academician of the Human League? Mao Zengzi noticed the problem at first sight. This is not right. Where is the carbon? Where did the carbon element go? Wait, this is not carboxyl. Professor, what on earth is this? Faced with this magical substance he had never seen before, He launched a series of questions to LV Yongchang point. But, at this time, Lu Yongchang was obviously still in deep thought point faced with Mao Zedong's continuous questions. LV Yongchang's eyes moved slightly, and he answered irrelevantly, "Do you also think this looks like protein?" Without getting an accurate answer, Mao Zedong couldn't help showing a trace of anxiety in his eyes. He hurriedly stepped forward and stretched out his hand to quickly swipe on the holographic projection. Of course, if we ignore the problem of carbon atoms, look, these should be polypeptide chains, which are intertwined, folded, and spiraled to form a complex three-dimensional structure. Mao Zedong waved his hands constantly, marking one area after another in the holographic projection. This is the secondary structure. This is the tertiary. This should be the tertiary structure. These are substances found in the liquid ammonia ocean of ice giants. LV Yongchang said softly. This. Mao Zedong paused, his eyes widened. Liquid ammonia ocean. Yes. LV Yongchang stretched out his hand and swept it across the air, and the holographic projection in front of him switched. Unlike the protein we are familiar with, the main component of this substance is amide. Amide. It's actually amide. Mao Zedong's eyes lit up slightly, and he clasped his hands together and paced back and forth in place point at the same time. His lips trembled rapidly, as if he was muttering something silently. LV Yongchang did not interrupt his movements, but just stood quietly by and waited. I see, Professor, I understand. Chapter 474 Amino Life. Amino Life, right, Lu Yongchang said softly. The excited expression on Mao Zedong's face gradually stiffened, and he swallowed the words that came to his lips. Teach, Professor, you have already thought of it. Lu Yongchang still stared at the holographic projection in front of him, waved his hand casually and said, "Same as you, I just thought of it." Mao Zedong breathed a sigh of relief, and the stiff expression on his face relaxed a little. Amide, a compound in which a acyl group is connected to a nitrogen atom, is an organic compound formed by replacing the hydroxyl group in a carboxylic acid with an amino group. Lu Yongchang's eyes were full of surprise. I didn't expect that it could replace basic amino acids to form a polypeptide chain. Unlike Lu Yongchang, Mao Zedong's eyes were full of excitement at this time point. As a biology academician, this brand new life form attracts his attention like a magnet. Although so far, only polypeptide chains and protein-like chains have been discovered, the emergence of this organic matter directly proves the possibility of the existence of amino life. Professor, where were these substances found? Mao Zedong asked. I mean, where was the liquid ammonia found in the ocean? Lu Yongchang pointed to the huge holographic projection in the distance. The pressure below the sea surface is about 23,344 standard atmospheres. What the hell? Mao Zedong was visibly stunned when he heard this. This data is too terrifying for humans or carbon-based life on Earth. But soon, Mao Zedong came back to his senses and began to think, if there really is amino life in ice giants, in such an environment, their physical strength should be extremely exaggerated, right? He muttered. The speaker has no intention, the listener has intention. Lu Yongchang's expression suddenly changed, and he suddenly turned his head to look at the huge holographic image in the distance. Float, 0. Control Poseidon, and surface immediately. But, obviously, it was too late. Poseidon, call the command center. Hope's voice came from the speaker at the same time. We have encountered an unknown situation. Ice giant, liquid ammonia ocean. More than 10 minutes ago. Hope and Hansen silently looked at the deep ocean outside the porthole and sighed in unison. The two people who noticed this looked at each other with wry smiles on their faces. I don't know when we can go back. Hansen stretched hard. This exploration mission is really not done by humans. Hope nodded knowingly. Thinking of the 263 kilometers of liquid ammonia above his head, he felt his scalp numb. He turned to look at the playing cards placed aside and smacked his lips slightly. Just wait a little longer. When the research results from the Dawn Star come out, we can relax more. When we continue the dive mission. Hansen nodded non-committally and once again looked at the holographic projection ahead. In holographic projection, the images of the outside world are returned by each camera point looking at the dark, borderless scene. Hansen shuddered slightly. I always feel like something is watching us. Do you feel this way? Hope was stunned for a moment, and after reacting he couldn't help but curse. Don't talk nonsense, perhaps. Because he was startled by Hansen's words, Hope reached out and rubbed the goosebumps on his arms vigorously and said angrily, "What the hell could be in the 263 kilometers deep liquid ammonia ocean? Aliens." Hansen also felt that his words were a bit outrageous. He scratched his head with a smile and apologized repeatedly. My, it's just, I really feel that way. Maybe it's because I've been in this small space for a long time. When the mission is over, I have to go back and do a good job." As he spoke, Hansen's voice became smaller and smaller until it stopped. Hope hadn't noticed the problem at this time and asked subconsciously, "What are you going to do when you go back?" "I won't stay at home again." Shh. Hansen hissed hard, interrupting Hope's words. "Hope, you look carefully at this camera picture. I seem to see some light, bright light." Hope frowned, turned to look in the direction of Hansen's finger, and said suspiciously, "I said, are you hallucinating due to too much pressure? I remember there is medicine in the warehouse. I will give it to you later." Hope's voice suddenly paused, and then he raised his hand and rubbed his eyes vigorously. That's right point in the image, returned by the camera. There is a flickering orange-red light in the endless darkness. It seems there's really light, he said with some uncertainty. The next moment, he came back to his senses. His face changed slightly, and he shouted to Hansen, who was in a daze next to him, "What are you doing standing there? Hurry up and turn on the sonar to see what that thing is." As he spoke, he pressed a few buttons on the holographic projection. "Proceed. Call the command center. We have encountered an unknown situation." Repeat. "We have encountered an unknown situation." There was almost no waiting, and Yongchang's serious voice came from the loudspeaker. "What's going on?" Hansen, on the side, was currently turning on the sonar system that had just been shut down for active detection. We found a light source." Hope swallowed his saliva, stared at the camera screen and the holographic projection, and whispered, "Light source, yes." The camera on the abdomen of Poseidon saw the orange-red flickering light. The flickering interval is about 10 seconds. The light source position should be below us, Hope reported in a hurried tone. The moment the voice fell, Zero had already called up all the camera screens on the exploration ship. Yongchang frowned slightly. He did not see the so-called light source in it. "Wait, where is the light source, Professor?" "The light source disappeared." Hansen, "Is the sonar turned on?" Hansen's voice sounded, "It's on. It's already on." Hope continued, "Professor, we turned on the active detection sonar." "Fuck, what the hell is this?" A chaotic sound came from the communication channel. Yongchang's uneasiness became more and more intense. He didn't have time to ask Hope, but directly gave an order to Zero. "Zero, pull out the sonar data." Looking at the huge, streamlined gray shadow like a reef under the exploration ship in the holographic projection, all the researchers present swallowed their saliva subconsciously. "Reef." Hope raised his voice. "Professor, is this a reef?" Looking at the gray shadow, Yongchang squeezed out a sentence from his mouth with difficulty. "Obviously, there will be no reefs in the liquid ammonia ocean of the ice giant." Chapter 475. "Professor, are you sure it 1039 T attack us? At least, at your depth, there shouldn't be anything like rocks." Yongchang added again. But obviously, no one here cared about this statement. Especially when he saw that huge gray shadow starting to make a slow circular motion around Poseidon. "Professor, you mean this thing is alive?" Hope's face changed drastically, and he asked breathlessly, "At present, it should be." Yongchang swallowed, looked at the slowly moving gray shadow in the sonar image, and explained in a hurry, "According to our research, the turbid objects in the seawater should be organic compounds similar to peptides and amino acids. This creature, let's treat it as a living thing. If it is composed of these peptide-like and amino acid-like substances, then it should be classified as an amino organism." As he spoke, gray shadow seemed to be stimulated by something, and his movement speed began to slowly increase. In the sonar map, the distance between the unknown creature and the Poseidon, exploration ship fluctuates. The camera also captured a flickering orange red light point, but unlike Hope's report, the orange red light flashes more frequently at this time, and it will flash once in about 8 seconds. Is it curious, Mao? Zeng's doubtful voice sounded from the side. Or, testing, Lu. Yongchang's expression condensed slightly. Point indeed, as Mao Zengzi said, the movements of this deep sea giant at this time revealed a somewhat tentative tone. Professor, what should we do now? Faced with the temptation of the unknown giant creature, Hope couldn't help feeling his scalp numb, floating. Don't move. Before Lu Yongchang could speak, Mao Zengzi shouted loudly, don't move. Keep hovering. Turn off the sonar equipment first. If I guessed correctly, it should have been attracted by the sonar equipment turned on during the dive. Hope and Hansen looked at each other, and without any hesitation, turned off the running sonar device. Point as Mao Zengzi said, during the dive, the active detection sonar equipment was working all the time. It was not until the exploration ship hovered in place and performed the seawater sampling task that the sonar detection device was turned off. Point it was at this time that this unknown creature emerged from deeper in the ocean. Poseidon turned off its sonar equipment and became completely blind in this vast ocean of liquid ammonia. Point, but the next moment, a 3D simulation image appeared in front of everyone. Point in the simulation diagram, the central area is a Poseidon exploration ship with a diameter of less than 100 meters, and next to the exploration ship, there is a huge creature with a streamlined body and a body length of more than 200 meters that is quickly circling swim. This is. Hope was stunned and asked subconsciously, combined with the sonar data just now, Zero made a simulation based on the orange red light captured by the camera. Lu Yongchang simply explained, the observation data is not enough, and the simulated image may be somewhat different from the real situation. Hope and Hansen looked a little more relaxed. Point, although not as good as sonar, having analog images is better than having nothing at all. It slowed down. Mao Zeng's voice suddenly sounded. Point after hearing this, Hope quickly turned his attention to the simulated image provided by Zero. Point sure enough, after turning off the sonar, the wandering movements of the huge deep sea creature slowed down a lot. Sure enough, Mao Zengzi stared at the holographic projection intently and murmured to himself, living in such a deep sea, these liquid ammonia creatures will inevitably evolve matching way of perception. You mean ultrasound? Lu Yongchang frowned and asked softly. Point Mao Zengzi nodded slightly. It's pitch black in the ice giant ocean. Growing in this perpetually dim environment, vision should be the least needed function, but sensing the outside world is an ability that organisms must have. It's not difficult to come to this conclusion when you think of creatures like bats. Lu Yongchang did not speak immediately, but silently watched the huge creature slowly orbiting the Poseidon exploration ship in the simulated image. Point suddenly, he asked, what about the orange light? How do you explain that thing? Mao Zengzi was stunned for a moment, then frowned. Point he understood the meaning of Lu Yongchang's words. Creatures that evolve naturally will generally not have useless functions, just like the deep sea fish of the Earth age. It has a fleshy protrusion that looks like a small lantern above its head. Point under the action of luciferase, this fleshy protrusion that looks like a small lantern emits a faint light. Point most fish living in the deep sea have certain phototaxis. Therefore, this luminous little lantern has become a weapon for fish hunting. Point if you compare it to this deep sea behemoth living in a liquid ammonia ocean, a problem arises. If these amino creatures have no so-called vision, or in other words, no phototaxis, then what is the purpose of the flickering light emitted by them? You can't just evolve a bling bling, twinkling decoration on your body just to look good, right? Hiss Mao Zengzi stretched out his hand to hold his chin and fell into deep thought. Teach, Professor, can you please stop discussing such profound issues? Think about what we should do first. Hansen's slightly trembling shout came from the loudspeaker, interrupting the thoughts of LV Yongchang and Mao Zengzi. Point faced with this unknown deep sea giant, the fear ingrained in human DNA broke out completely. Point especially when looking at the orange red light floating outside the porthole, and thinking of the terrifying environment outside, and the deep sea giant with a body length of more than 200 meters. Deep fear suddenly rose in the hearts of the two, even though Hope and Hansen were starship pilots who had undergone various trainings. At this moment, they also came to the edge of collapse. Cough. LV. Yongchang coughed awkwardly, point-faced with the minnow creatures that they had never seen before. He and Mao Zengzi forgot their current situation for a while. How about trying to float up? LV. Yongchang looked at Mao Zengzi and made a suggestion. See its reaction without turning on the sonar. Mao Zengzi pondered for a moment and nodded hesitantly. Yes, but try to float as slowly as possible. We know too little about it at present, and it is possible that it has a strong desire to attack. LV. Yongchang understood. Did you hear it? Try to float first, and try to slow down the floating speed as much as possible. Try. Hansen's voice even had a bit of crying. Professor, are you sure it won't attack us? Not sure. As an honest man, Lu Yongchang naturally answered honestly. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.